Everyone. I'm Angie Perry, and this is
Amanda Edwards.
and we're so excited you're here for the Take Action workshop this summer. Thank you so much for registering. We had over 450 people register, and we're just thrilled. We have an action-packed day, lots of great speakers, lots of cool lessons. We're going to do incredible things today, and we're just so excited you're here.
That we have a packed agenda. So again, thanks for joining us.
Well, one way to put on a summer workshop or even to have a successful program is, which I feel like Take Action SC has become a very successful program, is because of our partners. And so we wanted to introduce those to you right now. We've got PalmettoPride, Coastal Carolina University, South Carolina Energy Office, and University of South Carolina Sustainability. And as you can see the pictures of the different folks that are listed there under each one of those partners, they've all been super helpful to us, not only just with this program today, but also throughout the year. We call on these partners throughout the year to help promote what they have, and what we have is this partnership.
And they provide great resources for you as well. And as a matter of fact, you'll get to hear from a few of them, if not their team members, today. So we'll looking forward to seeing that.
Thank you, partners.
And then as far as our team goes, we'll start with me and Angie. So I'm Amanda.
And I'm Angie.
But we really want to introduce you to the more important people of our team. And that's the educators that get to talk to you and come into your classroom. So we'll kick it off with Margaret.
Margaret Mendenhall. Y'all might know her as she travels across the state. And of course, now we have a whole virtual aspect to that, where she does teacher workshops at your school or for a district. She even does them for universities and colleges, and does it for the student teachers, like right before they go into the classroom. So that's a really cool thing. If you have a daughter or a son or anyone that's in that program, that would be a neat thing to mention to their professor. She's also been a huge help in helping us with virtual presentations for inside the classroom, and you can see the counties listed there. So take note of those counties if you want an in-classroom presentation or virtual presentation for this fall.
And then next we have Janice Allen, and you'll get to hear from her this morning, and also in a live demonstration for one of our lessons. But Janice is primarily in the Midlands with a few outer counties throughout the state, but doing classroom presentations as well as virtual presentations for all grade levels.
And then we have Kris Abell, who's more in the upstate, focusing on like Greenville, Pickens, Greenwood area. And she's excited to be back in that classroom this fall, making those presentations in those areas.
And you'll get to hear from Kris later.
Yes.
You're also going to get to hear from Anita, who's with us. And Anita Mende is with really more the coastal region, and doing classroom presentations, virtual presentations. And her and Margaret are going to give y'all a great presentation on energy with Stacy Washington today.
And then last but not least, we have Stephanie O'Rourke, who could not be with us today because she's out of the country doing something awesome. But she's mostly located in like York and Spartanburg and all of those counties over that way. And she's a great addition to our team. Hasn't been with us but a couple of years, but she's took the ground running and is doing an awesome job. So very excited Stephanie will be working with us in the fall.
And before we jump into telling you kind of about our past year, I want to give a really special thanks to all of these educators, the partners through this partnership. So between the educators and the partners and all of you that have jumped in to provide resources for us, like Angie mentioned already, this program wouldn't happen without all of you. So huge round of applause for all of you.
But let's talk about what all those partners in this entire program has done this year, because I think it'll give you a chance. If you haven't had that much experience with Take Action SC, then you'll get to see what we've been doing and you'll want to jump on board this fall. So first of all, I have to say thank you to all the teachers, because you guys have been so awesome this year with the challenges that you've had. So we created the patience was the word of the year. And with everything you had to learn from all the different platforms, kids wearing masks, you wearing masks. I can only imagine what your day-to-days were like. And we thank you for being a teacher, but we also thank you for allowing us to come into your rooms and virtually and do classroom presentations. And we're just so excited to announce that we were able to, normally we did 5th, 7th high school environmental science presentations for the high schools, environmental science classes, but this year we were able to create presentations for every grade level, something that we haven't been able to do in the past because of travel being involved in all of that. So now we were excited to say that we were in 339 schools. We reached, by presentations, close to 39,000 students heard the message of some sort of environmental message. Margaret did a fabulous job did 34 teacher workshops. So you guys, with everything you had going on, you still didn't give up learning and trying to bring new things to your students, which just is another amazing thing about you. Of course, you can see there that we were able to do 1,090 presentations, and I just can't believe these numbers after being converted to virtual this year. So my staff just did an amazing job getting out there and not giving up, continuing to email you, and you responded, and we're very appreciative.
And I think it shows. If you'll take a look at that bottom right hand little icon, 99% accuracy was the average from students and teachers in the post-test during action presentations. So in years past, when we've done our pre-test before any presentations, the average has been in that 60% accuracy mark. This year, we actually started higher. So in that 75, 76% accuracy for pre-test, but jumped to 99% on average for the post-test. And
a lot of learning going on.
A lot of learning going on. And I do want to give a shout out too, even if you're not a classroom teacher or formal educator, we also have some informal environmental educators on the workshop. We appreciate you as well, and all of our county and municipality people. Thanks for joining us, but also thanks for helping us, because we know that a lot of you spend time in the classroom as well, and a lot of you provide the connections for us to get to the teachers in your counties. So another big shout out to you.
You know, we're going to spend some time talking later on in our agenda about this program, but new to Take Action SC this year was the Student Ambassadors for Sustainability program. And we partnered with University of South Carolina Sustainability Program, and they helped provide students. They already have a K-12 outreach team, so they provided college students to work with high school students on creating a sustainability program, either at their school or in their community, and it was just perfect. Lots of great results from that we'll let you hear. Surprise, a little giveaway, you'll actually get to hear from one of the college students and 2 of the high school students to tell them about the project that they worked on. And we're even more excited to announce that we're moving forward this fall with this same program, and we'll give you all the information about signing up for that at the end. And so next I wanted to introduce Janice Allen, one of our educators, and she is going to talk to you about landfills.
Supposed to be in here.
Yes, we should be in the recycling bin. Let's go.
There it is.
Hey, if we're not recycled, everybody loses.
That's right. Landfills are very expensive, and recycling saves resources and protects the environment.
So what are we waiting for?
All we're asking is for you to recycle.
Good morning. I'm excited to see so many familiar names on this list. Happy to have you here. So the first thing we're going to do is do the lesson about landfills. This is a lesson that we do in third, fifth, and seventh, first, third, and fifth classrooms, but we also introduce it in many other grade levels. You will find this lesson. We're not going to go over all of these sheets in our curriculum that you will see, but I want to tell you what the learning objectives of this are first. Understand and demonstrate that a landfill is a specially designed site to safely dispose of waste. Identify ways that the waste we generate at home, work, and school is managed, and that most of this waste goes to a specific type of landfill. And learn how much waste each of us makes. So when I talk about landfills, we have 3 different types of landfills. A Class 1 landfill is where land clearing debris goes. A Class 2 landfill is that construction and demolition debris. The Class 3 landfill is the municipal solid waste landfill. That's where our household waste goes. That's where the trash from your schools go. And you can see these maps and see where they are located. So when I start talking about landfills in the classroom, one of the first things that I say to the students is that I want them to think about ways to reduce the amount of trash they're putting in their trash cans. The reason I say that is because no matter what it is, whether it's recyclable or not, if it goes in a trash can or a dumpster, it is eventually going to be picked up by a garbage truck and it is going to be buried at a landfill. A lot of people hear buried at a landfill, and that sounds like a great solution to them. It's out of sight, out of mind. They don't have to worry about it anymore. But it is causing problems, and let's talk about a couple of those. The first problem you're causing is you're wasting natural resources. So when you throw a cardboard box or a newspaper away, of course, those are made from trees. So you're wasting that renewable natural resource. We're not going to run out of them, but you shouldn't be wasting them. Let's conserve them. When you throw a plastic water bottle in a trash can instead of recycling it, you're wasting petroleum, oil, different story. Non-renewable natural resource can run out of it someday. So once you throw those things in there, they will be buried at the landfill. Another problem is you're making the landfills fill up faster than they have to. We're going to see a virtual tour of a landfill in a minute, and you will see how big that space is and how much property you have to destroy to build a new landfill. And you don't want to do it sooner than you need to. So let's talk about the person on the bulldozer. Their job all day long as the trash is coming in is simply to flatten it out. And they're doing that because at the end of the day, the very last thing they're going to do is they're going to put a 6-inch layer of dirt over all the trash that goes in there. And they do that every day for some pretty good reasons. Personally, I'm happy about the first one. I only live about 10 miles from my landfill. I have never smelled it, but I would imagine that if they didn't cover it up every day, I would. They're also covering it up because you see the birds flying around the bulldozer here. There are lots of birds at the landfill because there's a lot of food in the landfill. If we didn't cover it up at night, other animals would creep in here and probably not have good results. Some of them would get hurt. Some of them might not even make it. And we certainly don't want that to happen. But back when they first started building landfills, they thought the dirt was going to help do something else, but it turned out we were wrong. So when they started building landfills, we thought that everything in that landfill was going to constantly be breaking down, decomposing, getting smaller, and we didn't think the landfills would fill up. And we thought the dirt was going to help that happen faster, but that is not what happened. As you will see in this video we're going to watch, this is Anita that you'll meet in a little while. She is creating a model of a landfill. You dig a hole in the ground, you're going to end up hitting the water table. We do not want to contaminate that water table, so we put a thick layer of clay, dirt on top of that. And then just to be sure, we're going to put a liner in the bottom, a thick layer of plastic so that groundwater doesn't get contaminated. At the bottom of every landfill are things called leachate pipes. Leachate is the nasty liquid in a landfill. It comes from the rain, it comes from your trash that you throw in there that has liquid in it. That leachate is drained out of there and actually cleaned up right there on site. And then they start doing layers of trash and layers of dirt every single day until the landfill fills up. What I want you to watch up there in the corner is how it's layered up, each layer. And the very last thing they're going to do, you're going to see in just a second, is they're going to put a final layer of plastic on the top of it and kind of zip it up like a Ziploc bag. That's called a capping layer. There is no way that the sun, the air, and the water that you need in order for that trash to decompose is getting into that landfill. And so what we know today is that the things in the landfill are not decomposing. So we're going to do a virtual field trip here, an aerial view of a landfill. See how massive it is? So that first thing you're seeing on the side is an active cell. It's almost full, but it is still taking trash. What you're going to see behind that, let's get a little closer to it. Look how big this is, y'all. Look at that dark dirt right there. That is a cell that is full, and that is that capping layer. So it's ready to have grass planted on top of it or whatever. Here's that liner, that plastic liner to protect the groundwater. And now you get to look up close and personal what those guys on the bulldozers do. They are flattening this trash out. You can see how many things are in there. I bet you can spot things in there that should have been recycled, but there they are. They're going to be buried in the landfill. They're not going to be pulled out of there. This is a landfill. Horry County has this composting component to it. Your yard trimmings that get picked up on the curb go there and get composted. And that's the full cell with the grass on the top of it. Now, Kendra Hooks from Horry County is going to talk to us about C and D landfills, those construction and demolition landfills. But first, we're going to test your knowledge. Surprise! Amanda's going to set up a quick poll for us here and see what you think the answer is. And she'll read it to you. Just a second. Get your fingers on the buttons.
All right, so what is the number one item being sent to landfills? The most commonly answered choice was plastic.
Okay.
However, Janice, I'll let you tell them the real answer.
Okay, my teachers better have gotten this right. The answer is food, but it is followed very close by plastic. Food is the number one thing that is going into the landfill.
Hey y'all, this is our construction and demolition landfill. This landfill is where shingles and mattresses, things that are coming from a construction site. As you can see, there has been shingles and rugs and cabinets. So that's where all that stuff goes when it comes to our recycling centers or a construction site. It comes here to the C&D landfill.
Okay, so these black pipes that you see coming out of the ground are the leachate collection pipes. Remember that leachate is the nasty liquid in the landfill, and they're going to drain that out so it's not filling up in there, because remember, it's lined in plastic. It would just stay. Landfills have water treatment plants on site where they clean it up, and they can actually end up using that water because it has been cleaned at that time. And there is a lot of liquid in that landfill.
These are as another view of the methane wells, and you can see there's a lot of them. We actually have 72 methane collection points on the MSW landfill, and all of the methane gas is captured and sent to green power engines. We have 3 Jennebacher engines that are from Austria, and we partnered with Santee Cooper to make these. Or to have this facility. We were the first in the state to have green power.
Okay. One thing you do need to know, we do need landfills. There are things that we cannot recycle and cannot reuse, and the landfill is there for those things. You'll see some of these in this picture here. DHEC regulates landfills to make sure that they're safe for the environment and safe for us. So do you think these items will decompose in the landfill? I think we've already learned that they will not. Do all of these items belong in the landfill? Not necessarily. Some of them do. That food, remember, food is the number one thing that goes into the landfill. 21% of that volume in the landfill are food scraps. They're not going to decompose either. They need the sun and the air and the water just like everything else does. So think about that when you're throwing those food scraps into the trash can. These are just some examples of things that have been pulled from a landfill to just show you how they're not decomposing. These glass bottles were removed from a landfill 50 years after they went in there, and you can see how they are not breaking down at all. This one's amazing to me. A newspaper, 37 years later. I mean, you can still completely read it. You can see the pictures. Amazing that that's still staying in that landfill. But remember, it's not getting the sun, air, and the water. Okay, this is pretty disgusting. These are carrots that have been in the landfill for about 10 years, and you can see how they're not breaking down either. So remember that food is the number one thing in there, taking up space in that landfill. So how do we reduce what goes into the landfill? Y'all know what I'm going to say, the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. Please reduce the amount of things you're putting in the trash cans. Reduce the amount of things that you're buying that you don't need, those single-use things. Make sure you're reusing things as much as you can. But get those water bottles that you refill and you reuse over and over again. Your shopping bags, quit using those plastic bags at the grocery store. Take reusable bags to the store. The composting down on that right-hand side, composting is nature's way of recycling. You're taking those food scraps, you're turning them into something else, you're reusing them, and you're improving the soil for sure. Now we're going to do another lesson here that you'll see on video. It's the My Bag. We do this in the classroom as well. Would love to do it for you, but it will further help you to learn what is recyclable, what goes in the landfill, the do's and don'ts of that.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kris Abell. Like she said, I'm one of the Take Action educators. I'm going to talk to you today about natural resources. And the lesson that we have 3 lessons under natural resources, but the one we're going to focus on is called When They're Gone, They're Gone. And as you can see, with all the lessons that we have, and I think we mentioned it earlier, when we create these lessons, we have the 5 E's that we take into account. We also make sure that the examples we use, and you'll see this today, are South Carolina specific examples. So another thing to point out is each lesson that we do is correlated and aligned to certain standards. So the one we're going to do today is for grades 1, 3, and 5. However, like Angie mentioned before, we have taken these lessons and adapted them to all grade levels. So just because you see that standard doesn't mean you can't adapt it to your particular grade. So we're going to talk about when they're gone, they're gone. So what are natural resources? Well, we all know that they're materials taken from the earth that are essential for human life. Just mentioned a few here, of course, air and water. And, you know, when we, our students are usually always talking about air and water. We've got soil, minerals, plants, and animals. Now, one thing I'd like to do is ask you, what are some different natural resources that you can help us with? So go in the chat box and give some examples of some things that you think of when you think of natural resources. Maybe this is something that you and your students talk about. And as we know that, natural resources are under constant stress right now. So as we go along and talk about this, we want to make sure that we are preserving those and conserving those natural resources. So we'll take a second to see if we have anybody.
There's some great ones coming in.
Oh, good.
So
Great. We love to hear your answers. And we know, you guys are always asking the students. It's nice that you get to tell us your answers.
So just to name a few that are coming in, we have sun, trees, soil, coal, gas, minerals.
Minerals.
plants,
Okay.
wildlife,
Great.
corn, streams, lakes.
Water. Okay. Great. Yeah, we've got that one up there. So great. So great answers. And we're going to kind of break down and talk about a lot of these that you've given us. So let's go on, and we're going to talk about, of course, what are natural resources? Well, we know that renewable or natural resources that will naturally replenish themselves. First thing that comes to my mind are trees and cotton. And remember, everything we're talking about are South Carolina specific examples. Non-renewable resources, best way to describe that, like the lesson says, when they're gone, they're gone. So we've got granite here, we've got gold. Now, kaolin is one that some of you may not know, but kaolin in the form that you see here, it's got a pinkish tint. And when we grind that down, Janice talked to you about landfills, and we use that for the natural lining of a landfill. So those are just some examples. Anybody want to name some more? We can, and again, keep them South Carolina specific. So put it in your chat box. And at the end, we've got some kind of live examples that will show you of things that, what are we going to use? We'll talk about bauxite. We're going to use that for. So, all right, so let's move on. We will go to the next slide. So resource conservation. So as we all know, unfortunately, we waste a lot of our natural resources. And so resource conservation is a way to try and keep those from being wasted. One of the ones that comes to my mind, especially this time of year, is, you might be driving down the road. It might be pouring down rain. You look over, your neighbor's got their sprinkler systems going on, and you're like, wow, we're wasting water. So that's an example. So how can we help with that? We can obviously not, if it's raining, turn our sprinklers off. We could use rain barrels. A lot of people are doing that now, especially with this type of weather. You conserve that water, and then you can use it when you need it. So again, resource conservation is just the practice of trying to keep those from being wasted. Recycling, and I'll get back and talk about that too. We're going to talk about recycling. Recycling is one of the best ways that we can have that resource conservation. And when we get to some examples in a minute, I'll come back and talk about that. So I told you about ways that we can, not waste water. Let's talk about soil. How can we conserve that natural resource of soil? So anybody want to share? One of the ones, while you're putting your answers in, one of the ones I thought was pretty fascinating is crop rotation. So, right now in the spring, farmers I'm going to use corn as an example. They're planting that corn in the soil, and when they harvest the corn, that soil's still sitting there. But one great thing about crop rotation, corn takes a lot of nitrogen out of the soil. So one way farmers help the soil, they plant beans. Beans are a great way to put those nitrogens back in there. So that's just an example. It looks like we've got some other planting trees. That's a great one. Other crops. What? Cover the crops. Very good. And I know for some of you, peach crops always come to my mind. No-till farming. However, that's a great answer. Very good. So all these are examples of how we can conserve that natural resource of soil. So let's look at another one. Water. I talked a little bit about water, how we can conserve that natural resource. We talked about the rain barrels, and we talked about those type of things. Other ways, if you're planting a garden, putting mulch around your plants. What does that do? That keeps that moisture in there. That keeps us from having to use that water again. Janice mentioned composting. Composting is an excellent way that we can conserve water. And I know lots of people in the past year have really gotten into composting. We're at home more. We're going to hear about not wasting food in a few minutes. What a great way to not waste that food by making compost. And when you compost, it acts like a sponge, and so we're not having to water as much. So again, those are some ways we can do the water resources. Trees. So we talked about trees a little bit. When we plant that soil, the deeper the tree roots, the better the soil is for the trees. Looking to hear some ideas from you. How can we conserve those natural resources? How can we conserve trees? I know a lot of you, some of you might already be in the classroom. It's, school supply time. We all know teachers always are having to buy school supplies for their students and kids. So, looking to buy that paper that might be made from recycled products or recycling paper in your classroom. Got some answers coming in. Sustainable forest. That's a great answer. Again, just thinking about those trees and using recycled, not using paper plates, reusing scrap paper. I'm looking at all these great answers coming in. Bamboo-based products. Using bamboo-based products. I don't want to be a spoiler alert, but you might hear some things about bamboo products at the end that might be coming to your mailbox. I'm just saying. Anything, let's see, anybody else coming in? So those are all, oh, we got more. Wait, there's more. Planting trees. That's because we all know that when we plant trees, we're getting all kind of benefits from the air and from the soil. So you guys have had some really great examples, and I love how interactive cloth napkins. Growing up, that's what our grandparents said. We need to go back to that because little things like napkins and paper plates, we don't think of, as wasteful, but they definitely can be wasteful. So thank you guys for those great answers. So again, when we talked about resource recovery, I mentioned recycling because recycling is the best way that we can practice resource recovery. And again, recycling is we're taking waste and we're turning it into something different, something new. And when we look at the hierarchy of recycling, we want to make sure we reuse first. We want to reuse, then we want to recycle, then we want to, we reduce, then we reuse, then we recycle. And then, we have to talk about the landfill. Like Janice said, there's some things we just can't do. But the art of practicing resource recovery really helps us with those natural resources and not wasting those natural resources. Time for a quick poll. So test your knowledge. Let's see what our question's going to be.
What product is made from the non-renewable resource bauxite? And our most commonly chosen answer, which is the right answer, is aluminum cans. Aluminum cans, very good. All right, so great. So we're going to kind of talk about that in a minute. We're going to talk about, how that whole process is made. And remember the resource recovery. So here we are with bauxite. So if you look at the top corner, bauxite is a reddish material. It is an ore, not a rock, that is used to make aluminum cans. And so what we do is we grind that down and it's like into a powder and it becomes an aluminum can. Now, a neat fact about aluminum is aluminum can be infinitely recycled over and over and over, which is great. So we're not having to go back and use more bauxite if we're recycling because, again, it's infinitely recycled. So the good thing about aluminum can, you drink your soda, you put it in your recycle bin, that aluminum can is going to end up back on the shelf anywhere from 30 to 60 days. And so that whole process, again, these are all examples of resource recovery. Petroleum. Janice mentioned petroleum earlier. Petroleum is what we use to make plastic bottles. So we make the plastic bottles, we recycle those plastic bottles. And if you look at the bottom, I know when we go into the classrooms, the students are always amazed at how we can take plastic bottles, we turn them into t-shirts and bags and pencils. There's even, shoes, all different type of clothing can be used to make this. And so again, that whole resource recovery. Copper is another one we have. So if you recycle cell phones and computers, that copper, that valuable metal of copper is used to in turn make copper wire. So these are three examples of, resource recovery, how we can help with our natural resources. So now what I want to do is kind of show you some things live. And some of these are going to be some of the ones we talked about. So here we go. All right, so let's talk about, since this was one of your questions, this is actually what bauxite looks like. And if you see, it's kind of a reddish rock. And again, we grind that rock, we get our aluminum can, and then we in turn turn it into other aluminum cans. Remember, infinitely recycled, it's hard word to say, infinitely recycled. So petroleum, obvious, this is purified petroleum, so it doesn't come out of the ground looking like this, but we take this kind of petroleum and we in turn turn it into these plastic bottles, like you see here.
And then this is an example. This is what we had for our student ambassador program. You guys are going to hear that. It says here that 6 plastic bottles were used to make this shirt. Maybe I'm going to do a spoiler alert again, but you may see a plastic shirt in the mail, maybe later on, if for attending this website. So that is a great one. This, I love this. This is a tree, obviously. This is a part of a tree. And again, I know it's great. Students love to see stuff like this and how we can turn it into paper, and paper like this, which again, we can recycle. By recycling it, we are conserving that natural resource. And then this is one we mentioned earlier. This is granite. I know when I think of granite, I think of countertops, but again, this comes from South Carolina. This is a natural resource from South Carolina. And this is another type of bauxite that this is Caitlin. And this is used, this white type is used to make china. We think of china like dishes. That other one we saw earlier was the kind that we use in the the lining of a landfill. So thank you guys for being with us today. Thanks for joining us. And I hope I get to see you in the fall.
I love that presentation on natural resources. We do forget about how precious those are, and when they are gone, they're gone. So thank you, Kris. That was awesome. Next, we are very excited to talk to you and introduce Kirkland Smith. She is a local artist here in Columbia and in South Carolina. She's got all types of things to tell you about, but one of the things that we love about what she does is it completely correlates to one of the lessons that we have in the curriculum called Trash Your Treasure. And you'll get to see that when you get your curriculum in the mail. But Amanda and I got to go hang out with Kirkland in her studio, and it was so much fun, and got some footage of her working. And we're just so thankful that you were able to join us today, Kirkland. And one of the things I want to thank you for is all the Tree of Life artwork that you saw when we promoted the workshop for you to register on your agenda. Another little surprise for you in your goodie bag that you might see with that Tree of Life coming. All thanks to Kirkland for allowing us to use her artwork. So without any more, I'm going to let you see a quick introduction to Kirkland Smith.
First of all, I just want to say thank you, Amanda and Angie, for that very dramatic introduction. And I just wanted to take a minute first to thank you and to thank all of the team that are part of Take Action SC. And I also want to thank all the groups that partner with you, because I think that what y'all are doing for our state is just fantastic. And I also wanted to take a minute to thank all of the teachers that are here today, because what you are doing is so important, and I really appreciate you. And I'm just so happy that I can be here with you today. And can I also say that I am thrilled that art is part of this program. So what I want to do is just take a couple minutes to explain how and why I got started doing assemblage, and that is what you call the work that I do. And assemblage is basically assemblage, where I am assembling items together to create artwork rather than painting them. And then I will share with you 5 very practical tips on how you could create a successful piece with your students if you'd like to do that. And then I wanted to just share a story that kind of sums up really what I have learned through working with this medium. But first, I wanted to start with a few sobering facts. Half of all the plastic that has ever been made has been produced just since 2005. And despite all the hype about recycling, less than 9% of all plastics generated are recycled in the US, and most of them end up in landfills or in the environment. And the sad fact is that most of the plastic that is around us isn't recycled because it's not really recyclable. And we teach our kids the 3 R's, reuse, reduce, and recycle. But I read recently in a CNN article that with plastics, it's more like the 3 B's. Plastic is buried, burnt, or borne out to sea. Every year, 8 million tons of plastic ends up in our ocean. And it's been projected that by 2050, there's going to be more plastic in our ocean than fish by weight. And one of the problems with plastic in the ocean, among many, are that it breaks down into little microplastics, which fish eat, and then it can end up inside of us. And a recent study reported that the average person consumes about a credit card's worth of plastic. It's ingested in their system every week. It's pretty scary. But ocean plastic is just one example of a human-created global issue that can be solved with responsible consumerism. But back in early 2008, I wasn't thinking about any of this. Back then, I have 4 children, and they ranged in age in 2008 from about 5 years old to 13. And my husband was serving our country as an infantry officer in Afghanistan, and he was about 3/4 of the way through his deployment. And I had just gotten back to painting after taking a few years off to focus on raising our children. And one of the things I decided to do was to enter an art competition because I thought that it would give me a problem to solve with my painting. And the theme of the competition was environmental landscape. And honestly, before I started working on the piece for this competition, I hadn't really thought a whole lot about environmental issues. But the artists were tackled to deal with one in their piece. And as a mother of young children, I was very aware of all the stuff that was coming in and out of our house. And so I decided to focus on our disposable society as my issue. But then I was trying to figure out, how do I paint a picture of that? And so in trying to find a creative solution to the problem, I just turned to the material itself. And I decided to use all of this plastic stuff as my medium. And so I didn't have that much time to create the piece because the competition had a deadline and it was not that far away. I had a few weeks. And so I turned to my friends and I asked them just for 1 week, every time they went to the garbage can, if they would please just think of me. And if it was small or plastic, if they could save it for me. And so my friends dutifully that week dropped their garbage at my door. And my children could not understand why I was so excited to receive it. And my poor husband, he had no idea that I was turning our dining room into a maker space, and I had a growing collection of people's post-consumer waste. So this is what I created for the competition. This was my first piece. And it's called Inheritance. And I wanted it to have that serious message of the burden that we're passing on to our children. But I also feel that a child's face is a hopeful image, and I do believe that this is a problem that we can solve. And since 2008, we are making steps in the right direction. But after creating this piece, I decided that I had a lot more ideas of pieces I wanted to do. And so I wanted to create a body of work, and then hopefully I'd be able to have a show where I could introduce this type of work to Columbia. But it took me 3 years to build a body of work because each piece took 2 to 4 months to complete. And I know as teachers that you can't necessarily teach this way in your classroom, but if you notice a student becomes really excited about a new medium they're working in, or a new style of art, or a new subject, I recommend that you encourage them, even if they have to do it outside of class, to just run with it and do a series, do several pieces. I always say do a dozen pieces, because you learn a lot when you work through something like that. And I know that I learned a lot from working with objects. And so what I'd like to do next is just share with you 5 tips for how you can create a successful piece with your students. And the first tip is, like most things in life, keep it simple. So here you can see, I usually work on a wood panel. This happened to be pegboard because the pieces are kind of heavy. And so I was trying to figure out, how to make it lighter. And this was, in the beginning, I was using pegboard. And so what I do is I draw the outline of the design on there, but working with big clunky objects is different than working with paint. And it's hard to get that fine level of detail that you can get with a really small paintbrush. And so I think that you have to, in art, they say, look for the big forms first, and then you look for the ever smaller and smaller forms to get that detail. But with assemblage, I would say that you really just start with the big forms and then maybe move to slightly smaller forms, and just let the objects themselves create the interest in the work without worrying about too much detail. And then if you're lucky enough to create a piece and sell it, and somebody else wants you to do the exact same piece, what you do is something similar but a little bit different. So the second tip that I would give is an extension of the first one, is to plan out your design. And you're keeping it simple, but the next few slides I'm going to show you are examples of projects that I have done with students in school. Some of them, like this one, with 3- and 4-year-olds, all the way up through high school students for different projects. But I would bring the panel in already painted so that when the students come in, they really know exactly where to put the different colors. Because the truth is that when you start working up close on a piece, it's very easy to lose sight of the image and you lose track of where you are. And so having the panel already painted creates this guide for them so they can't really get lost. And the other thing that's really good about it is that as you lay the objects down, there are going to be gaps between the pieces, and that substrate or wood panel or whatever you're using may show through. And if you don't want that to be distracting, if you paint the panel behind the objects, the color of the objects, then the finished piece is just going to hold together and be a little bit tighter and cleaner looking. And so the third tip is to get your values right. And this is really super important, because the trick to getting a likeness or making something look realistic is to get your lights and darks in the right place and to have a distinction between the two. It's very easy when you find like the perfect size and shape and color of an object that fits exactly where you want it to go. But if it's not the right value, then it might not read correctly. And so there's a saying that color gets all the credit, but value does all the work. And there's really a lot of truth to that, because value is really, in the end, it's more important than color. And the next tip is that variety creates interest. And so in this fish, for example, you can see that the body is made up of smaller objects, which creates a lot of texture, but the face of the fish is actually made from just one item that's been deconstructed. It's a spray trigger nozzle. And I just took it apart. So you have this kind of flat, smooth surface that is next to all the texture. And another example is if you're doing a piece that has like a lot of the same color, maybe in the background, and you have maybe one object and a lot of it, like a bottle cap, for example, that's the exact perfect color that you need. Don't clump them all together, in one area of the piece, spread them out throughout the piece, and that will give an overall harmony to the piece, but make sure that interspersed between them are lots of other kinds of objects, because that's just more interesting. There is one exception to that rule that I use all the time, and that is particularly when I'm doing portraits. The face is very busy with all of the different kinds of objects, and so I'll often use either all of the same color or sometimes even just the exact same kind of bottle cap, for example, on this piece, to create the background, because what it does is it makes the face come forward and it makes the background really set back. And the fifth tip is going to sound really simple, but it's really so important. And this is where the creativity comes in. And that is just to use what you have and make it work for you. Don't worry about having the exact perfect right piece to make your piece work. Because really the fun of assemblage is the challenge and the problems that you have to solve along the way. And I think it's a great exercise for children for this reason, because number one, working with the material is just a lot of fun. But it also gives them an example in a way of how they can reuse an item. So for example, if they have something that maybe doesn't work or it's broken, instead of throwing it away, it's perfect for art. And I think that working in this material creates a lot of problems to solve. And I think that kids have to use that creative side of their brain. And I think that the more opportunities we can give them to do that, the better off the world is going to be. And I think sometimes in school, art is the only opportunity they have to use that. And I think that we need more people who are thinking creatively and solving problems. I love that the title of this workshop is Take Action, because that's what we have to do. Really, we cannot wait for our students who are becoming so environmentally minded to grow up to solve the problem of climate change. And here I just want to say this is the same piece, but it actually lights up. So I just wanted you to see what it looks like when it's turned on and turned off. We can't wait for our children, because the truth is that what we adults do in the next few years is going to determine our children's future and the future of their children. So I think what we need to do now is prepare them for the future. And I think this is an issue that needs to be talked about every day. I think that generations to come are going to talk about this generation, and they're going to wonder why we didn't do more and sooner when we had the chance, when we actually had solutions to the problem, but we just failed to act. And I think one of the problems is that the plastic industry has made us think that it's our fault. For decades, the industry has funded environmental movements with the sole purpose of having their message say that it's your responsibility to deal with the impact of their products. And I also feel like they've given us the false impression that everything they create is recyclable. And we've already heard that's just not the case. We know that's not true. But the fact is that it's easy for them to convince us of that because we so badly want to believe it. But our personal behavior is not the main culprit. Despite decades and millions of dollars that the industry has spent trying to convince us of that. But the real change is going to have to come from the manufacturers themselves. And it's going to be up to us to force them to bear the cost of the pollution that they've created. And I think we need to teach our children that this important value that they need to demand and expect transparency and better processes from their consumer goods. And they also need to be able to spot false solutions. But there are things that we can do. We need to remember that every time we make a purchase, we're basically making a vote for the company that made that item. And so we need to lead by example and make very thoughtful purchases. We also need to be willing to be a little inconvenienced. I know that in the segment before mine, we talked about a lot of ways that you can reduce your waste and you can reuse things. And I have one that's kind of surprising that I just found out about recently. If you chew gum, you might want to consider quitting, because gum is made from a synthetic rubber, which is a form of plastic. And I'm sure you can come up with a lot of other ways, because you're going to have to. We're going to be forced to live that way. And I think we need to continue to teach our children the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. But I think we should add 3 more. And I heard about these in a talk given by Sarah Dudas. The first one is to refuse. Refuse any single-use item whenever it's possible to do so. Actually, refuse any item that you don't need, whether it's plastic or not. And if you can't refuse it, reduce it. And try to find natural alternatives whenever you can. And this is actually the easiest step that we can take right now. I also think that we're going to need to rethink our products, so that from the very beginning, we are thinking about the end of the life of the product. That's redesign. We need to redesign our products so that we do take that into consideration from the very beginning, because we need to avoid products that, come with the expectation that you're going to be disposing of it and replacing it often. And products should be made to last longer. And it's even best if they can be part of a closed loop system, like the slide we saw earlier, the aluminum can, for example. The aluminum can be endlessly recycled into other aluminum cans. And that's actually a better choice than recycling products, or downcycling them is the term, where you create something else, but then they can never be recycled into anything else again. And I think it would be awesome if at the end of the life of a product, it actually was beneficial to our environment instead of toxic. And so the third thing is we need to rethink our purchases. Rethink whether or not we really need that item, or are we just being manipulated by a persuasive market? And if we need it, can we buy it used, or does it have to be new? And in the future, we're already doing this, but I think we need to think more about buying services rather than replacing items. But we're all in this together, and together I think we can make a huge difference. And over the years, I have learned a lot from Assemblage, just how much better my work is when I have help from the community. I always say I'm only as good as my trash, and I have lots of trash now. A lot of it did not come from my home, although I do keep a bucket under the sink, and I'm putting everything in there that I can possibly use for my art, so that I'm not putting it in the trash. But there are projects that I just could not have done without help from the community. And so I want to share with you now a little story that kind of brings it all home for me. It was a great lesson that I learned when I was leading a community assemblage art project in Artfields as a festival in Lake City. It's a 10-day festival. And so we were going to take a week to create this project. And I came in the day before and put tape on the floor to tape out a design. And we created the piece and then the clam livery stable. And so the dimensions of the piece were going to be 25 feet wide by 50 feet long. And the idea was that we would invite the community to come in, and they could fill in the sections of this design any way that they wanted to. The only rule was that they had to start from the center and work out. That way we wouldn't step over anybody's work and nobody would get hurt. And so people were very creative, and they came up with great ideas for the different sections, and they created patterns and they mixed the colors together. And I had come to Lake City with basically most of the contents of my studio. I had come in a U-Haul trailer, and this is a 5x8 trailer, and my bins were stacked basically from floor to ceiling, from front to back. And I knew that there was a very real possibility that at the end of this project, on the last day when we would ask people to help deinstall the piece, all of that plastic could have ended up just all mixed together. And that meant I'd be coming back to my studio in Columbia and spending weeks and weeks, if not months, reorganizing it all. So I did not know what was going to happen, but on that last day, we had a little ceremony with the mayor, and we had the people that were there. We asked them to volunteer to help us take the piece apart. And I could not believe it. It had taken us 7 days, working from 9 in the morning till 6 in the evening, every day, probably about 63 hours to create this piece. And when everybody got to work, and it was not a huge group of people either, it was a nice little group though, and they jumped right in there, and within 30 minutes, they had picked up every single piece of plastic off the floor, and they had sorted it by color into the bins. And my material was just as organized as when I had returned the week before. It was amazing. I could not believe how much, how fast we could clean up this mess when we all worked together. And as a memento of that experience, I invited everyone there to just pick an item out of any bin to keep, just to remember that lesson. And they've already said that you're going to be receiving a little gift bag. And inside the bag, you're going to get a postcard with a reproduction of a piece that I did called the Tree of Life that you've seen on all the material earlier. And so I hope that you will keep this as a momentum of this workshop and a reminder that what you throw away says a lot about you, but what you choose to cherish and protect says much more in the end. Thank you so much.
Kirkland, thank you so much. Your artwork is amazing and inspiring, and we're just seeing so much of that in our chat box too. A lot of teachers wanting to start some projects of their own at their school, and we love that. We do have a couple of questions that I wanted to just go ahead and talk about. One of them was, do you ever have to paint the plastic pieces to fit the colors that you're looking for?
That is a great question. And as an artist, really, you can do whatever you want. But I have made certain rules for myself. And one of the rules is that I don't do that. It makes it harder, much, much harder, because I don't always have the colors that I need. I have to kind of like overlap objects to try to make it work. And it's amazing how one bright orange cap can just scream out of a piece when all I need is just maybe like a little sliver of orange. And so sometimes I'm overlapping objects, but to me, as a professional artist, I feel like part of my challenge and the fun of doing this work is to use the objects in their original form and not to paint them. But if an object comes in as a donation and it might be splattered with paint, I'm not going to not use it. Or one thing that I have done is I might take things apart. Sometimes I have kind of big objects or toys that I can separate and use to have separately, or I can open up and there are other little pieces inside that are good to use. And I have cut pieces before, like I've cut bottle tops in half, or I've pulled arms and legs off of toys if I just needed that, color, but that shape. And one of the reasons I use so many toys in my work is because it gives me more color variation. Like I can find some of those kind of gray, green, strange colors more easily in toys than I could find in a bright bottle cap. But no, I don't paint anything. I try never to do that. But I will also say that if I were in a situation and I absolutely felt like I needed to do it to make the piece work, then I would use my artistic liberty and I would do it.
Awesome. Okay, so we have two more questions, and these are probably equally the most asked questions in our chat box. First, do you use a special glue or adhesive when working with your pieces?
Yes, I should have included that because that is a great question. I do. I use a silicone-based glue. It's called Goop. And I used to be able to find it more easily, like at Hobby Lobby and Michael's and Walmart. And I think that Hobby Lobby discontinued it. I'm not sure why. I actually order mine online from the True Value Hardware because I can get it in a 10-ounce size, and I actually use it in a caulk gun. But you can find it in craft stores on small packages. They're like an ounce or 2 ounces, which is what I like to use when I'm going into schools and if I'm going to let the students individually glue their pieces down. But with very young kids, I probably would just let them place objects and not glue. Older kids, middle school and up, they can handle glue with some supervision. But what I like about this glue is it dries clear, it dries quickly. It's not like crazy glue. It doesn't make your fingers stick together, because you could just rub your fingers to get the glue off your fingers and it'll come right off. But there's a little bit of flexibility to the glue. So the first piece I did, Inheritance, I actually used a hot glue gun. And I mean, my hands were blistered after I finished that piece, because I was trying to work so fast, and it's kind of dangerous. But worse was that when the piece was finished, I found that the objects just popped off. It's like the glue dried very hard and brittle. And so it needed a little bit of flexibility in order to have a good solid hold. But there are other glues. I think a lot of teachers use E6000, and I haven't really worked with that, but I have bought some. I do need to do that. But the thing about that glue, my understanding is that you have to place your objects and then just leave it overnight, and it doesn't really adhere until it has time to cure. Whereas the glue that I use, it does have some fumes, but I could glue a piece down, and then within a few minutes, if the piece isn't too heavy, if it's a bottle cap, I could glue it down and within a couple minutes pick the piece up and it's not going to fall off.
Awesome. And then last but not least, and I don't want to put you on the spot, so I will direct people back to your website, kirklandsmith.com. But we've had quite a few teachers and municipalities ask if you ever do guest speaking, or would you consider virtual or coming to their school? So I think for some of those, y'all check out Kirkland's website. Through there, you can send her a note. And I know Kirkland is out and busy and speaking and obviously working on her pieces. So I'll let her answer those individually as y'all would like to contact her.
I will say I do that. I mean, I do visit schools. I lost a lot of jobs during COVID because I couldn't go to the schools. I love working with students. I love, a lot of times what we do is the school mascot. It's often a project that schools want to do. But sometimes I've gone to schools and just done a presentation and talked about the work. Yes. But please contact me. I'd love to do that.
Thank you so much, Kirkland. And I know that our group can't really give you a round of applause per se, but I know they are all doing that. We are just so thankful to have you here and to see your work and that you've shared your work with us. Again, it's just amazing, and we appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about reducing wasted food. So this applies to all of us at home, in our schools, here at DHEC, really anywhere that we can think of. And the great part for you is we also have lessons built around this. So a couple of different lessons. Don't Waste Food SC is the name of the lesson, as well as our campaign here at DHEC. But also we have composting, which is recycling naturally, as we all know, but a couple of different things happening in the curriculum that are geared towards getting you and your students to understand about reducing wasted food. And as Kris and Janice and everyone has mentioned, you'll see here that the standards are aligned to specific grade levels for these lessons. But what you're going to see is some extension activities that can really be adapted across any grade level or even in adult communities, because I use these all the time. So first, we're going to fly through some things just so we can save some time. But reducing wasted food is important to us at Don't Waste Food SC and Take Action SC here at DHEC because most importantly, we need to feed people, not landfills. But we also want to save money, conserve our resources, and enhance our soil. So those are kind of the things we focus on. The Don't Waste Food SC campaign really has three main pillars, though. And that's prevention, which is really the most important. That's how we can stop the most food wasted, is through prevention. We also can do donation, even at schools. So yes, you're protected by the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Food Donation Act, which is a federal law. We also have state laws in place in South Carolina as a double layer of liability protection. But donation doesn't have to mean just giving food to a food bank or a shelter. Donation could also mean share tables. And we're going to talk a little bit about share tables when we talk about grants at the very end. And then last but not least, composting. So all of those things that you can't consume or aren't going to consume, or maybe they just went bad or whatever you think, it doesn't mean they still don't have to go in the trash. So composting is still a great answer to reducing that wasted food. All right, so let's take a quick field trip. Now for me, this field trip isn't usually too far because it's right to the refrigerator in our kitchen. And as you can see here, this one is actually not my refrigerator. I'm very organized, thanks. But anyway, you'll see in this refrigerator, a lot of times it is what we see at home. What's in there? What's in the back? I forgot what I stuffed back there. I really don't feel like cooking today. I don't know what this date means. Is it good? Is it bad? Should I smell it? Should I not? Who knows? The problem with all of these questions is it leads right to this, food in the trash can, which leads right to this, food in the landfill. And this is where we have to stop this process. So a couple of quick tips that we're going to go through. Pairing is important. When you make your fruit basket, that far left one, while that's beautiful and it probably looks great sitting on your counter, it's actually not the best for your produce. Those bananas need to stay away from the other fruit in the basket because they're ethylene producers and they're going to make everything go ripe really fast. We can also cut bad spots out. We can also do some regrowing. I have some live examples. See here, this is some little lettuce that I've been regrowing, so I don't even have to buy new plants. Here's some celery, and I'm going to plant this right in my garden. And then I've got some produce. Share tables. Now for this one, we want to make sure that we're not doing what this picture is doing, which is putting milk into a basket. We still want to make sure that we're adhering to our food safety guidelines, especially in schools. So we want to make sure that milk is either in a cooler or an ice bath or a mini fridge or something, which hint, hint, you can apply for a grant from DHEC for that. And then food drives, you can also set that up with your students, get them to do food drives. And then last but not least, composting. So I want to show you a quick little bit video about regrowth, which was taken in my kitchen. And so you can see some of the things that we're regrowing, and then we're going to do a live demonstration. If you want to share with us, Don't Waste Food SC has its own Instagram and Facebook. So share some pictures with us of what you're regrowing. So you're saving money by not buying new plants, and you're also keeping that scrap of what would have gone possibly into the landfill. So this little end of the lettuce doesn't seem like a lot, but add up how many houses are in your neighborhood, how many families throw those away. That could be a lot of pounds of food. All right, so really quickly, we're going to do a compost in a bottle. And when I say quickly, you may have to go back and watch the recording, which is fine, but we're going to fly through this. So I've already pre-cut. I have a bottle here. It's a gallon bottle. And actually, let me see if I can. There, maybe you can see me bigger now. Okay, so I have this bottle and it's already cut, and I'm gonna start with putting some soil into the bottom. Right, so we're gonna start, shout out to Atlas Organics and Leslie Rogers, who also helped write this lesson. But we're gonna start out with some compost and soil in the very bottom of our container. And I've already cut this lid so it hinges, but also it has some little holes in the very top just to get some air when we're done. So the biggest thing to remember about composting is you're going to need a carbon source. I did not have dried leaves. It's the middle of summer, so I didn't have dried leaves, but guess what? I had a paper bag, a newspaper, and some brown paper packing, to which I shredded just with scissors, nothing hard. And this is a 3-cup bowl. You're also going to need greens, which are nitrogen. And here I have 1 cup of shredded, the peeling and off of cucumbers, carrots. I think there's some ends to a couple of things. This actually came out of my freezer. So when I get done prepping for salads and vegetables and things like that, I just take those little peelings and scraps, throw them in a Ziploc bag and put them in my freezer until I'm ready to do another demonstration. In your case, you could just put it right in your compost. But the ratio to remember is 1 part greens or nitrogen to 3 part browns or carbon. And we're just going to start. So we're going to take our container and we're going to layer some browns. And you see I'm touching it. It's nothing gross. It's just food. I mean, it's a little goopy, but it's fine. And we're going to layer it. And then we're going to layer some more browns. And then we're going to layer some more greens. You want to make sure that you have enough browns in the end, the last of my greens going in. So the last layer going in is browns. And that's how you want it to work in your compost bin at school or at home as well. So the last thing on top is those browns. Now, let me show you. This is one I've been working on. Can you see that? So every once in a while, I give this one a little shake. But I've done about 3 different demonstrations, and I just keep adding to this bottle. And you can see, like, that I date it, I label it and date it, and then it breaks down. And now this is beautiful compost happening in the bottom. So what can you do with your compost when you're done with it at school? Well, for this classroom demonstration, you can take that and put it in a garden or in a pot with some potting soil. This is not really the way that you want to reduce food waste at your school. This is really a great demonstration of how to set up a bigger bin if you're wanting to do on-site composting. And of course, check out our website, scdhec.gov/don'twastefoodSC or scdhec.gov/compost. And you can find all the tips that you need to know about backyard composting versus commercial composting, like if you're having compost picked up from your school, because they are very different, but both are great options for your school or for your business or your home, whichever you're looking to do to reduce your food waste. All right, so let me jump to the chat. I do see, does it smell? I've tried that in my environmental class and it draws the little gnats. Yes, those little gnats are quite annoying, aren't they? So probably what's happened is you have too much nitrogen. So when in doubt, add browns. And that's usually the most common. I had a couple of those little gnats flying around my cuts in the top. Oh, and I did tape this, by the way. You're going to want to tape that. But I had a couple little gnats. I added some more browns to soak up some of that moisture. And really, it was just too high in nitrogen. That is going to keep the smell down and going to keep those weird little gnats away too. Oh, and Victoria Hoffman says, Beaufort County teachers, contact your recycling coordinator so we can get you a compost bin. How awesome is that? Thank you, Victoria. Let me see what else we have. How old was your demo bottle? Can you make it vermin too? Okay, so for my demo bottle, like I think the first one I did in May, and then I did another one in June and another one last week. So this is 3 different demonstrations that I just keep adding to. As far as vermicomposting, not really going to want to put worms in here. You're going to want to do that as a separate bin. Red wigglers are the best, but definitely a great opportunity for classrooms to learn life cycles and everything else, but also the castings from the worms are a great addition to your compost and to your soil. All right, so I know we have a lot of chat coming in, and I will work on getting those answered, but let's go ahead and jump. Let me see if I can get us back on track here.
Remember when we were talking about Kirkland and Trash or Treasure and the lesson that we have in the curriculum about that? We also have a segment in that lesson called the Crayon Initiative. And all of our lessons are great opportunities with different activities in there that do that, help you achieve that project-based learning in your classroom. You know, we had an educator, Stephanie O'Rourke, who was in one of the Spartanburg County schools, and it was Anderson Mill Elementary School. And they did such a great job of tying in this actual activity with project-based learning. And it was just so good. We just have to show it to you because it's really cool to steal other people's ideas, right? And we're going to take a quick look at Anderson Mill Elementary School's little first grade video on project-based learning.
So our first grade project-based learning unit is about to wrap up here at Anderson Mill Elementary. We have had such a wonderful time exploring and investigating our natural resources, our environment, and recycling. Of course, with that, our kids have to do a lot of deep thinking when we do a PBL unit. It's based on kids learning to ask questions and do critical thinking and use those inquiry skills like asking who, what, when, why, where, and how things happen. Along with that, we have a struggle because we have to find ways to help them research. And this year, having COVID amongst our buildings, we could not go out for a field trip, and so we were really struggling with what to do about our outside resources. And it was just amazing that in our laps fell this opportunity with DHEC. The South Carolina DHEC department had put together a virtual field trip for kids in first grade aligned with our standards, and so we were able to take advantage of that. And Stephanie O'Rourke with DHEC came into each one of our classrooms virtually and did just a fantastic job. We had a chance to inquire with her. She gave us a Q&A time. It was filled with resources, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience for all of our classrooms. So that was an excellent thing that happened along the way this year. Also, we had to think of a way for the kids have to think of a way to connect to the world around them. And they came up with a wonderful idea after we found out about this initiative that was happening in California. Brian Ware started a cool thing called the Crayon Initiative. He was out with his kids one night, noticed that they were coloring with crayons that were then thrown away, and he thought, I need to do something with these thrown away crayons. And so decided that it would be a great opportunity for him to recycle those instead of sending them to landfills where they basically do not decompose, and turning them into recycled crayons for kids in hospitals. And when our students heard about that, they were like, yes, that's cool, we're on board, we want to do that. So then they had to think of a way to involve the school body in that project to recycle these crayons and bring crayons into their classrooms. So they did these wonderful projects with their posters in a small group in their class. They got together, met, talked about a theme for their poster, a topic to go on it, put the information there, had to work together as a team for that, and to get that started in our hallways around the building to get this initiative going. And now they have been going around collecting just today some of these boxes to take back up these resources that they have brought into us of the recycled crayons. So we hope we're going to have a great quantity to send to California to go to those kids in the hospitals. Finally, they did a book of their own, a persuasive book to help others want to recycle. And that was just a great way to culminate what they learned, the process of what they've been through, and all the things, all the parts of the puzzle being put together. So our PBL unit has just been an awesome one to experience at first.
This is my persuasive book on recycling. Why you recycle? I believe recycling is right. If you recycle, you can turn old things into new things. If you recycle, you are keeping the trash from going to the landfill. That is why I believe recycling is right.
Okay, I hope that you'll be able to take some of that information, and as I said originally, the curriculum is just jam-packed of great project-based learning ideas. Next, we are wanting to welcome University of South Carolina, our newest partner in their sustainability department. We are going to welcome Grace Kazmiski and Katie Miller. And they are going to talk to you about their Sustainable Carolina program briefly, but more importantly, they're going to talk to you about sustainability literacy. This is something that they've been doing and going into University 101 classes with students and talking to them about literacy for sustainability. So welcome, Grace and Katie. We are excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So as Angie said, my name is Grace Kazmierski, and I am the Assistant Director here in the Office of Sustainability at the University of South Carolina. I also have Katie Miller on here with us as well. She's one of our graduate assistants in our office. So we'll talk to you a little bit today about sustainability literacy. Before we get started with kind of how we address sustainability literacy, I wanted to talk to you all about what we do and who we are. So we have 3 full-time staff members in our office, and our mission is kind of fourfold. So first, creating and advancing a campus sustainability plan to move campus forward in terms of sustainability, enhancing our capacity to explore and implement those innovative solutions. That's where we're often working with campus partners, with energy, with water, with waste services, to think about those solutions and how we can make our campus more sustainable. Assessing our progress toward institutional sustainability, so we collect a lot of data and report on that data. And then the last part, which is the area that I am responsible for, is engaging students in integrative learning and leadership development. So that integrative learning piece, encouraging our students to be able to connect there within and beyond the classroom experiences and then apply those in their future career. And so here you see a picture of some of our students working in the garden. During COVID, we were still able to provide that opportunity for students in our Sustainable Carolina Garden, which is located right here on campus. So we address sustainability literacy kind of 4 different ways. The first is through our sustainability philosophy, which I'll talk to you about in a moment, but really thinking about how to envision sustainability, because we know a lot of our students, when they think about sustainability, they think of recycling, and that's about it. So we're really trying to encourage students to think about sustainability holistically. Through an eco footprint assessment that you all will get to take today. We do that with our University 101 classes as well as our students in our student organizations and programs. And that's a way for students to just kind of see where they're at with their sustainable living. And then our Sustainable Carolina Leadership Program, that is how we are partnering with Take Action SC and the Student Ambassadors Program, which you all will hear about a little bit later. And then partnerships both across campus and in the community. So our sustainability philosophy, the way we kind of define sustainability here at U of SC, is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. My favorite part about this definition is that you don't see the word environment in here anywhere. That's because we think about sustainability very holistically and not just about the environment. So one of the ways that we conceptualize sustainability is through these 3 pillars. So economic sustainability, you can see that pillar on the far left, talking about opportunities for growth, increased GDP, green jobs, preventing practices that misuse resources, like we talked about those natural resources earlier. This social pillar of sustainability really relates to social justice, and so making sure that everyone is included and able to participate in their local government. Addressing food security, so thinking about that Don't Waste Food SC initiative, and making sure that we are providing every individual with better life chances and opportunities. Then this pillar on the far right is what most people think about when they think about sustainability, and that's environmental sustainability. So here we have the protection of our ecosystems and our biosphere, the quality of land, air, and water, and those natural resources, managing waste and pollution, those landfills, and recycling and composting. So these 3 pillars, we can also think of them as a Venn diagram. So if we have social sustainability, also known as the people, sometimes we can say the 3 Ps. And then we have environmental sustainability, which you can think of as planet. And then our last one, economic sustainability, which you can think of as profit. So this conceptualization is known as the triple bottom line. It kind of originated actually in the business world, but we like it because we think that it really incorporates all 3 of these areas to think about people, planet, and profit in everything that we're doing. And so here is where true sustainability lies within all 3 of these areas. So one way we like to provide an example to students about what something that is sustainable in terms of social, environmental, and economic is our Sustainable Carolina Garden that's right here on campus. So it supports social sustainability by providing students, community members, faculty, and staff with the opportunity to really get their hands in the dirt and maybe try a new vegetable that they haven't tried before that's grown right here in our garden. Supporting environmental sustainability because campus, as you know, is a lot of concrete. And so being able to have this little acre of wonderful permaculture principle garden that provides a wetland and drainage for the Rocky Branch Creek, as well as some of that nitrogen into the environment. And then our profit. So we sell our produce at the farmers market here right on campus. So we sell that at an affordable cost so that students can have access to local, organically grown produce right here on campus. While we do not make a ton of money, all of that profit is put back into the garden. So it's a really tight circular economy right here on campus. So the last way that we can kind of think about our philosophy is as a 3-legged stool. So if we have environmental, social, and economic in these 3 legs, all of them must be stable or equal in order to make sure that stool is not going to wobble. So if we are thinking only about the environment and the economy and we're not thinking about that social aspect, then it's not going to be sustainable, right? So we want to make sure that we have those 3 pillars. So how do we assess sustainability literacy here at USC? One of the ways that we've been able to do that is through an ecological footprint assessment. We define that as the impact of a person or community on the environment. You may also hear it as carbon footprint. So if you want to throw it out in the chat, why is knowing your ecological footprint important? Why should we assess this? All right, let's see. We have helping determine how you can reduce your waste. Yeah, so we can improve, so we can know what steps to make an impact. Absolutely. All of those are great. I see them still coming in. Awareness is the first step. Yes. Yeah, we have to have that baseline so that we know how we can do better. So you all can use our eco footprint assessment if you would like. I'm going to put the link here in the chat as well, so you can click that link and it'll take you to our assessment. What you'll do is mark the appropriate response for how frequently you engage in each of these practices. And the lower your score, the less impact you have on the environment. So I'll give y'all about 7 minutes to go ahead and fill this out. And when you're done, if you want to put your score in the chat, you can, but no need to at all. We're not trying to score shame anyone out here. So it's up to you. But we'll reconvene at about 10:27. I saw someone in the chat asking about a link to what your score means. So we created this assessment specifically for our college students, because if you type in carbon footprint assessment online, a lot of the things that you'll get that pull up are asking what appliances you have in your home, asking how often you drive. And we know that our students oftentimes don't have control over if they have LED light bulbs in their dorm room, right? They don't have control over what appliances they have in their apartment. So we created this knowing that some of these things are things that our students have control over, things that our students can make these little changes. So with that being said, the score is somewhat arbitrary in that the lower your score, the less impact you have on the environment, but we aren't necessarily assessing the amount of carbon you are emitting in your daily life. So what we wanted to do is make sure that students could think about all of the ways that they could live a little bit more sustainably, and pretty easy changes, or some of those on the last part are talking about, I'm aware that food deserts exist. So then we can have a conversation with our students about what is a food desert. And kind of raising their awareness level about those things, and maybe hoping that they'll dive into that research a little bit later on their own if they're really interested. But we hope that this is something that you could also adapt to your students. So think about, if you're working with high schoolers, what types of things can they control in their lives to live a little bit more sustainably? Are they aware of food deserts? Can you have a conversation through this assessment through that? I hope that answers your question. Now I see some scores coming in, and that's awesome. Great job, you all. And one of the things that we also like to highlight with this is it's basically a list of all the ways that you can live more sustainably. So yeah, can you make those small steps every day to decrease your carbon footprint? Absolutely. And as we go through this, as we go over this, one of the things we want to highlight, and I noticed someone put in the chat about, I wonder what BP and Shell's carbon footprint is, what their score would be. So as we talk about individual actions, we also want to understand that only 100 companies are responsible for 71% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And that Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, and Nestle are the 3 companies responsible for the most plastic pollution. So all those bottle caps we saw in Kirkland's wonderful art, oftentimes those are from Coca-Cola and PepsiCo, right? So while our individual actions are awesome, your biggest impact and our students' biggest impact is as a consumer and an activist. So I like to pull up this tweet for our students. They think it's a little bit clever. BP tweeted out, the first step to reducing your emissions is to know where you stand. Find out your hashtag carbon footprint with our new calculator and share your pledge today. And then this clever man said, I pledge not to spill 4.9 million barrels of oil into the Gulf of Mexico, right? So we want our students to understand that they can refuse certain companies. If they don't want to purchase from their companies, we can help them to research B Corps that are going to provide a little bit more benefit to the environment and aren't using those exploitive practices. All right, so talking a little bit about sustainability specifically here at USC. So Sustainable Carolina is our interdisciplinary leadership program. And so we have about 50 to 60 students each semester participating in this program from all different types of majors, 23 different majors actually. But our coaching program has 3 different kind of areas or prongs. And so that first is the project teams. So we have 6 different project teams that our students work on to address sustainability literacy and advance sustainability on campus and in the community. Then we have our one-on-one coaching. Our students are coached one-on-one for leadership development by our graduate assistants and our staff. And so that's an opportunity for us to help empower our students to take on these big challenges, right? We know that Gen Z are often the students who are going to be really addressing climate change. And so we want to make sure that we can empower students with the tools and the skills that they need to go out in the world and do that. And then our workshops and events. So we host a bunch of workshops as well as events on campus. Many of them are open to the community. So if you'd like to be added to our listserv, I can send out that link to Angie, and she can send it out to you all hopefully. But those events range from a green networking breakfast where our students can network with sustainability leaders in the area and just talk about what sustainability is and what that looks like as a career, to a sustainability showcase where we have, we partner with our Office of Undergraduate Research to have a research showcase about sustainable research. And we know that that comes in many different forms, whether that's through literature and through analyzing, Silent Spring, or whether that's from a civil engineering student. So one of the things that we found with our students when thinking about sustainability literacy and how we can engage with students is that we want to have tiered levels of involvement. I'm sure you all find with your students as well, some students are gung-ho and ready to jump in and do 10 hours a week, as much as they can. And then some students have other obligations and they can only devote an hour a week. And so one of the things that we do is offer different levels of involvement for our students to get involved when they're ready, where they're at. So everything from a volunteer where there's really no requirements. You can show up, you can volunteer in the garden. All you got to do is sign up online and come for a 2.5-hour shift whenever you're available. And then our peer leaders and our project coordinators who are responsible for 50 and 70 hours respectively throughout the semester to really dedicate to those project teams. So as I mentioned, we have 6 different project teams. Our K-12 education and outreach team works with Take Action SC on a student ambassador program. So you'll hear from one of our students in a little bit, but we're really excited about that opportunity. We also work with AC Moore Elementary School. If we have any AC Moore teachers out there, we work with that Green Club to come in every other week, pre-COVID, of course, to facilitate and help facilitate sustainability related lessons with the kiddos. And then our green certification team runs a green event certification and a green office certification. So a way for offices and events, whether they're hosted by offices or by student organizations, to certify those as sustainable. So we have an audit checklist where our students go and kind of do like an environmental consulting checklist with our faculty and staff here on campus. So it's a great way to engage with our partners. And then our events and outreach team, you'll see this picture is from a yoga event that they had a couple years back. And so they host our events throughout the year. And so they host an Earth Day event in conjunction with our farmers market. So it kind of changes each semester, but we love that team as a way to really connect with the greater community. And then our garden guides. Those students work in our Sustainable Carolina Garden leading volunteers. So you don't have to have any experience to volunteer in our garden because our garden guides and our garden manager, Sadia, are there to support anyone in that process. So it's a really great opportunity for our students to connect with other students. And some of our students have never gotten their hands in the dirt or seen what a cucumber looks like on the vine. And so being able to facilitate that is a really great experience that we can give these students. Our Zero Waste team addresses waste here on campus. So they work closely with campus dining to address waste. We have great partners over there with Scott Warner and Carolina Food Co. They've worked on a clothing drive, and this semester they will be doing a clothing swap. So encouraging students to bring clothing in and swap it with another student. And I see someone in the chat is asking, do these students come as guest speakers? They absolutely could. That's not something we've explored in the past, but I think that's definitely something that we could make happen for sure. And then lastly, our food systems team also works closely with campus dining, but they really work from the way that food is grown and produced to the way it gets to wherever you are buying it, where you're buying it, and then what you're doing with it. So last semester they had our created some recipes that are easy for college students to be able to make with limited kitchen space and being able to recognize what's in season and how our students can cook with in-season produce. All right, our other way that we address sustainability literacy here on campus is through our Student Council on Sustainability. So there are over 400 student organizations at the University of South Carolina, which is crazy. But these are some of them that we meet with monthly to make sure that we are collaborating and working together as much as possible. So we've done a full week-long green we called it Green on Green, an Earth Day event where each of these groups collaborated to create an event a different day each week. And so that was a really great opportunity for our students to see what it looks like when you bring together a bunch of groups and a bunch of stakeholders. And then our partnerships. We always say that we could not do this all alone, that sustainability requires partnerships and requires collaboration. And so the way that we do that is through our Sustainable Carolina Garden. Our produce is also sold to McCutcheon House, which is the food service dining area here on campus where our hospitality students work and can provide that really experiential learning opportunity for those students through internships and research that our students do, so we can connect students with faculty who are doing research on climate change and make sure that our students are getting that opportunity to do that research. Community organizations, we've partnered with Conservation Voters of South Carolina, if any of those folks are on here, with Congaree Riverkeeper and Sierra Club. We've partnered with those organizations and tried to bring them to campus. We're working on a bike, oh gosh, I've lost my words, refurbishing bikes with Colatown Bike Collective this year. So a lot of awesome ways to bring in this Columbia and the South Carolina community into the work that we do. And then our campus partnerships. Again, we could not do this alone. And so we rely on our partnerships across campus to really work together to make sustainability happen here on campus. All right, so if you all would like to connect with us, our Instagram is @sustainablecaro, as well as our Twitter. That's our email. It's pretty easy, sustainability@sc.edu. Feel free to send us an email if you have any questions or just want to connect. And then that's our website as well. All right, let's see if we have any questions.
Question about the student team coming as guest speakers. So I don't know if that's an option.
Yeah, that's not something we've done before, but definitely something that we'd love to explore. If you want to just send us a quick email to that sustainability@sc.edu, then we can talk through what your expectations are and how we can get students out to you either virtually or in person.
And then one other question, I'm not really sure if this relates, maybe this is a USC thing, but is there a farmer's market on Tuesdays?
Yes, so on our campus, we have a farmer's market every Tuesday that's right on Green Street in the heart of campus. And so that will be starting up again in August. I believe the first one is the 24th of August. So when students get back, that is on the 24th. And it's open to the community, so anyone can come. It's typically from 11 to 2.
Awesome. And is there any thought about adapting the survey to the elementary level?
We have not thought about that, but that's definitely something that we could work with you all on if that's something you're interested in. And I think our students in particular on that K-12 education outreach team would be a great resource to help with that. So yeah, send us a quick email and we'll be able to connect and see what we can do.
Awesome. And then the other comments that we seem to be getting are just saying amazing work. One, so excited. Amy Umberger, who is from Lexington Richland 5, so excited for the work that USC is doing, and we are too. So we'll gladly insert a Go Gamecocks for that.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you listening and being present through this. I hope we will all be able to connect sometime.
Thank you so much, Grace.
Okay, thank you so much, Grace. That was awesome. And I love that you guys have so much interest in that. And that is the entire purpose of us partnering with them and getting them involved in Take Action SC. And then with our new program this year, Student Ambassadors for Sustainability, as mentioned earlier, we wanted to talk a little bit more about that. This was such a great opportunity for high school students to work with college students and learning and developing skills and all the things you see listed there: project management, public speaking, communication, leadership, and of course,
tying all of those in with a sustainability project. And so we had a registration, had lots of students interested. Then we paired them up to a college student, and it was really neat because the college students could work with their own schedule. They had different classes. What was really neat is something like at Spartanburg High School, as you can see here, they started a school garden in raised beds out behind their school, and they met as a class during their class time. So that was very neat. And so the couple of college students, and actually one of the college students, Emmy, that you're going to hear from today, she actually worked with the Spartanburg High School too. But we had, as you can see, some of the different projects we had here, an environmental newsletter, composting started at their school. And remember, and we are going to talk about this at the end, about grants. So some of these schools applied for a grant with the school and received that to start the composting. So that was really neat to see that also happening. Then we had today we're going to hear about the art contest, and I want to steal any thunder from that because we also have the 2 high school students on here to talk about that as well. As you can see, we had a garden tower to donate all the produce that came from that garden tower. And then just different environmental, J.L. Mann High School, their environmental club did a big environmental awareness week. So they did constantly things just to bring up, they're already doing lots of great programs there, but they wanted to get all of their students involved in it. So as you can see, lots of great projects, very excited about moving forward with this program and continuing that partnership with the University of South Carolina. But right now I want to introduce to you Emmy, who was awesome to work with. She was a student mentor for the 2 high school students that you will hear from who were from J.L. Mann. And I just cannot say enough great things about Emmy, but I'm going to let her talk about the Sustainable Carolina program and then her involvement in our program with the ambassadors.
Hi, everyone. So as Angie said, my name is Emmy, and I am going into my senior year at the University of South Carolina. I'm studying environmental studies and psychology, and I joined Sustainable Carolina as a sophomore. So I've been a part of it for a good few years now, and I've really, really enjoyed the experience. I love being able to work with the Office of Sustainability and really promote sustainability across our campus at USC, and have now, being a part of our K through 12 team, really been able to expand this across the whole Columbia community and even further than that. So I do serve as a peer leader. So as Grace explained, with my position as a peer leader, I do have a certain amount of requirements to meet. So I'm not just a volunteer, but with that, I do complete a certain amount of hours. So I give back to the community with these volunteer hours. And I do meet with a coach one-on-one, which has been super beneficial to me. She's been giving me a lot of great experience. It is a grad student who helps me get into the field. I want to get into environmental career after I graduate from college. So she's been a great help and resource for that. I do also attend professional development meetings. So that's roughly about once a month. And those have been really beneficial as well to getting me prepared and getting that experience that I really look forward to. Another requirement is to graduate with leadership distinction, which is going to be something that I'm working on this upcoming fall semester. And it is a great experience as well to get you prepared and show all that you have achieved throughout your time in college. I have specifically been working with the K through 12 team since my junior year. So I started that in the fall of my junior year and have done it for the past 2 semesters. And we'll do that again in this upcoming fall. And I have worked with Take Action SC and the Student Ambassador Program for Sustainability this past semester, and as well as before. We started everything off really right at the beginning of November in, I guess that would be 2019. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, so as Angie was mentioning, I was a part of 2 different projects. So I was the university student helping out with 2 projects. The one that I did with the Spartanburg High School, I had another university student helping me because that was a whole class that we were working with. But specifically, I did also work with Maya and Maywin, who you guys will meet very shortly, on their project. But my role essentially was to help these high school students and make sure that they had everything set and were prepared prepared for whatever their project was that they were working on. So one way we specifically did this was by establishing a project management plan. And we set this up with the high school students back around in November when we were starting the starting the program right away. And so this PMP plan, so that project management plan, kind of has a few essential aspects. And the first one is to establish goals. So with that, it's to go into detail about what specifically you are wanting to achieve. And so with the group that's going to present in just a little bit, they wanted to do that big sustainable art contest. And so that was the big goal. And we had to establish all those little goals in between. And so that's where you get into the brainstorm, the steps that are needed in order to achieve that goal. And that was really started off at the beginning. We started brainstorming what they wanted to get done, how they were going to do this, and really what needed to get achieved first. And so this is where you produce a task with deadlines, this list, so that way you can go back and see really what you would like to get done at what time. For the girls that are going to present, we wanted to do their art contest on Earth Day. So April 22nd, I believe it was this past year, was the date that we were having to have everything finished by. So we set kind of these deadlines prior to that to figure out, okay, how many months would we need before this, how many weeks, whatever it was in between. And then we did arrange this chronologically so that it was in a step-by-step format so that you could kind of check it off as you went along. And of course, plans change, things adapt as you go into it. So we did continuously review and update this plan. And we had a note sheet so that we could see where things were changing and how things were updating as we went. In this position, again, being the university student for these high schoolers, it was really important to help make sure that the students were organized throughout this whole process and had the material and information that they required. So a few ways that I did this in my role was that we did set up monthly meetings. So we'd plan these monthly meetings, and while we were on the Zoom call, I would always be taking notes to make sure that the girls, whatever they were saying, or with the high school, Spartanburg High School, whatever the teacher was saying and the students were working on, we had those notes down so we were prepared to reflect on it afterwards. And then sending out reminder emails. So after every single meeting that we had, I would send an email just kind of taking the notes that we talked about in the meeting, shrinking them in a little bit so that it was the big, most important parts that we discussed. So making sure everyone was on the same page, and then sending that a reminder email about any upcoming tasks that we had. So if there was something that needed to get done based off of that deadline, as well as a reminder for any upcoming meeting that we had scheduled, because again, it was usually about once a month. And then finally, I was just really there to be available if they had any questions throughout the entire process. With the group that is going to present, it was really from November until April was when we were working, or end of April. So throughout that entire time, if there's anything that they needed, I gave them my contact information, and the girls were able to reach out with anything that they had going on. That really is my role and what I was doing as the university student for Take Action SC and the Student Ambassador Program. I really am excited to hear from Maya and Maywin, so they're going to go ahead and present right now on what they did with their specific task or their job within the Take Action SC student program. Thank you, everyone.
So the next two guests I want to introduce is Maya and Maywin, and they have been great to work with as well. They made a perfect team with Emmy. They're going to talk to you about how they were inspired to do their sustainable art contest, everything that they did, and be prepared to be impressed, just as you probably were with Emmy.
Hey guys, I'm Maya. And I'm Maywin. And we're going to be seniors at J.L. Mann High School this year. So our project began when we were inspired to promote sustainability in our own community. And this all starts with reusing, reducing, and recycling. So we thought it would be fun to have a virtual art contest where you can only use reused, recycled, and old materials that would otherwise be thrown away. This not only encourages sustainability, but also inspires creativity. The first thing we had to do for our contest was set some guidelines. These included using at least 3 different recycled or reused materials to create an original art piece. And this is without using any kind of new materials. We also set 3 different age groups for our submissions, which were ages 0 to 4, 5 to 8, and 9 to 12. And since our contest was completely virtual, we had to design a website. And for this, we used Google Sites, which was extremely user-friendly. And we inserted Google Forms for our registration, submission, and voting. And in order to promote the contest, we had to design a flyer as well. And for this, we used Canva, which was just as simple. And we even included a QR code for the website on the flyer. Next slide, thank you.
To promote our contest, we had to print off flyers and we took them to neighborhoods and local businesses. And we even contacted a local school that focuses on environmental sciences. And we also had the flyer virtually and we promoted that on social media. Another way that really helped us promote it was the Been Thinking April newsletter. And Jane Hiller helped us get a page in that newsletter, which helped us get kids from all over the state. And it went to teachers from all over the state. So that really helped. To find judges and prizes, we went to local businesses and leaders and teachers, especially art teachers. They helped us for the art portion of it. Some of the prizes we acquired were Target gift cards, gift baskets, like newspaper pencils, and those were all very generously donated. Next slide.
Then after our judges scored the submissions, we had a Zoom award show on Earth Day. And we recognized all the winners, and then we also recognized some other special pieces that really stood out to us.
It was amazing to see all the art pieces, and the best part was knowing that we got to inspire the kids being sustainable. We are planning on continuing this project again this year, and some of the changes we'll do are expanding the age groups and probably taking out the youngest age group because we didn't really have any submissions. And we'll also use some more marketing skills and communication skills that we learned along the way. Now we're going to take a 2-minute break.
So one of the things I wanted to finalize right before we take that 2-minute break, thank you all to you all three. You guys were great, and I hope everyone learned more about the program. Again, that registration for the program will be on the takeactionsc.org website, and it will open soon, and we will probably have that registration until about September 15th. So we want to get that in. Encourage your students, your high school students, to get that in so we can pair them with a University of South Carolina mentor. One of the things I forgot to mention, and I wanted to say it, is University of South Carolina was so great too. One of the hopes of the programs was to bring all the student ambassadors onto the University of South Carolina campus, which we were, even with everything that was going on. University of South Carolina really worked hard to make that happen. And we invited the ambassadors, all of them, of course, but the ones that could come, came, and they were able to do a tour. And actually, Emmy, believe it or not, she does tours as well. She was able to lead them in the South Carolina tour and of the campus. And then we were actually able to do, Grace gave them a tour, among others on her staff, gave a tour of their sustainability programs, their gardens, composting, recycling, everything that they did. They do at South Carolina. So we appreciate University of South Carolina really working hard to make that happen. And that would be something, moving forward, we'd like to offer those ambassador students every year, not to mention that they all received a t-shirt that Kris showed you earlier, the green one with the shirt that was made out of the plastic bottle, recycled bottles with the cool message on the back. And they also received like a reusable straw kit. So that kind of kicked off the program. And then last but not least, I want to thank Larry Cook, because he's the director of the University of South Carolina Sustainable Carolina program. And without him having the foresight and us working together to make all this happen, it wouldn't have happened. So thanks, Larry. And we look forward to another great year of the Sustainable Ambassador Program.
And next up, we are going to hear, we're going to have a little video from Alex Miller, who's here at DHEC and talking about Recycle Right SC.
Hello, my name is Alexandra Miller. I am the office's local government recycling program liaison, as well as the manager of the Recycle Right SC campaign. This is a partnership campaign between DHEC and PalmettoPride. This outreach campaign is directed at South Carolina residents on how to improve recycling habits and help reduce contamination in the bin. The Recycle Right SC campaign is the remessaging and replacement of the Recycle More SC campaign. As with most around the country, our local governments were facing high contamination in the recycling bin, which created higher costs for their programs. This campaign was developed to provide a clear, consistent message for our office to use across the state and make it easy for local governments to implement in their own public outreach. Pictured here are two pieces of material for the campaign. The rack card on the left provides an overview of the campaign in English and Spanish, while the card on the right is about contamination in terms of recycling and how to prevent it. Pictured here are four of our flyers: Recycling's Dirty Dozen, What Can Recycled Items Become?, Recycling the Basics, and the Top 10 Reasons to Recycle in South Carolina. In addition to the printed materials, we also developed a website for the campaign. This is available at recyclerightsc.org. I'm continually updating the site for accuracy and effective information for viewers. The website includes an overview of recycling in South Carolina, why recycling is important, what is contamination, and much more. At the top, we have links for info and resources, FAQs, a contact page, the campaign partners pages, SCDHEC and PalmettoPride, and Recycle Here SC. Under Info and Resources, there are links to the Recycle Right SC page, which provides an overview of the campaign and recycling in our state, the Make a Difference page, which includes reasons to recycle and why it's important, and the Additional Resources page, which contains downloadable links to all of the campaign's outreach material, as well as other material from our office, including the Composting Guide, Don't Waste Food SC Home Guide, and the Solid Waste Management Annual Report. All of these are available to click on and download the PDFs. On the FAQ page, there are answers to some of our most frequently asked questions about recycling. And if a question isn't answered on this page, you can always go to the contact page and ask a specific question, which is sent to recyclelocal@dhec.sc.gov, where I will respond. The last tab at the top of the site is a link to our Recycle Here SC page, which is housed within DHEC's website. The link takes you to this page where all of the state's counties are listed. If you click the county you reside in, it takes you to the page which has the county recycling coordinator's contact information, the locations of all county drop-off sites, and a list of what is accepted at the sites. If any municipalities within that county have recycling programs, whether curbside or its own drop-off sites, that is also listed. Now, a major item to come out of 2020 was the Recycle Right SC, a guide to residential recycling. This is a comprehensive 11-page guide to recycling correctly in our state and reducing your overall solid waste. We begin with a description of the campaign and why it was developed, along with reasons why to recycle, how recycling works, and recycling basics. How Does Recycling Work is also available as a standalone poster called the 3-Step Recycling Loop. We converted all of the flyers I previously showed to fit in this guide to make this a one-stop shop for residents. There is also an overview of how to recycle hard-to-manage items such as antifreeze and paint, how you can help make a difference in recycling, how to manage unwanted medications, and how to safely dispose of needles. While the greatest focus of this guide is recycling, we do provide safe and proper disposal options for certain items because we know that this may be the only option. We also transferred the Dirty Dozen flyer to the guide, and this is aimed at curbside recycling. Aside from recycling at home, our office has several programs that address solid waste reduction and recycling in other sectors, such as school, work, and college and university. We also provided additional ways to reduce waste that include recycling naturally by composting at home, recycling used motor oil correctly, stopping unwanted mail, and reducing food waste at home. The page on the right is dedicated to the mission of our partner, PalmettoPride, and provides 10 tips to help prevent litter in your community. In addition, we included a rundown of the See It Report It campaign, which is aimed at reporting illegal tire piles. This is a partnership campaign between DHEC, PalmettoPride, and the SC Department of Natural Resources. And last, the back page has helpful contacts such as our office hotline phone number and Palmetto Pride's Litter Busters hotline number. I'm very excited about this guide and truly hope it can be a useful tool for South Carolina residents. The guide is available to download at recyclerightsc.org under the Additional Resources link. There will also be a printed copy in the mailer from this workshop. This guide is also open to local governments to adjust and edit specifically for their recycling programs. We are currently working with Clemson University to adapt this guide for their program. Our goal is always to provide the most accurate and helpful information for residents. Thank you all very much for your time today. Please feel free to contact me with any questions you may have about the Recycle Right SC campaign. Have a wonderful rest of the workshop.
So thank you, Alex, for that. And just so to answer a question that came up, we will provide that handout in your toolkit when you receive it in a couple of weeks. Next, I would like to welcome Esther Wagner. She's with PalmettoPride, who again is one of our wonderful partners. And she is going to talk to you about all the updates going on with PalmettoPride and how your school can be involved with some of the things that they do. Welcome, Esther.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Show of hands real quick. Everybody raise your hands there if you litter. I don't see anybody doing that. So when I go out and speak at events, I'm always asking people that. And so far, I've never had anybody raise their hand and say, yes, I'm a litterer. I litter. So obviously, we have a social norm that says we are not going to litter. So you guys don't need me here. There's no litter that's happening because that's the social norm that's accepted, right? So we all know that that's not true. There is a disconnect between the social norm of not littering and what we see happening. So one thing that we always want to talk about first thing before we get started on the litter lessons that we have is to talk about how litter happens. 81% of litter is intentional. So people are intentionally tossing stuff out the window or leaving it setting beside a trash can. I don't know why people think that they can set something beside a full trash can and that's not littering. But that leaves 1 in 5, 19% of litter events are actually due to our inattention. So if I asked you now, how many of you have left something behind inadvertently, or you didn't cover your load and something flew out, or you roll down your windows in the summer and let something fly out? I think most of us would have to be honest and say, yes, I've done that. So we want to talk about all of the things the ways that litter happen. A lot of times litter is not trash. It's things that people wanted to keep. We've found very nice balls, all types of sports balls. Senator Rex Rice, on his very first pickup up there in Pickens County, he found a roll of over $100. And I found tickets, lottery tickets that were winners, that I've won $50 and I've never played the lottery. So the one thing that we always talk about, everybody talks about the environmental aspects. And I think we've done a very good job of making people aware of the environmental aspects of litter. We talk about the animals, strangulation, suffocation, the toxins that they get, they line their nests or they're with cigarette butts, and then the babies, the eggs don't hatch, or they're mutant in some way. We talk about all of the ways that animals can be injured. We talk also about how it's impacting our water quality, that type of thing. But we also want to highlight the fact that there are things other than environmental that litter is impacting. So you can see here, anything that's littered is going to eventually, unless someone picks it up, it's going to eventually end up going down a storm drain or into a water system of some sort, and then it will end up in the ocean or in our rivers and our ocean. I want you to notice that this picture is not some third world country. This is the Los Angeles River. This one is in Memphis. This picture is from Memphis, Tennessee. These aren't third world areas. So we see a lot of the trash and a lot of recycling ends up, we're doing such a good job of recycling, and then we, especially China has stopped now, but these third world countries are taking it and they end up taking the valuable stuff, and then the rest gets dumped in the ocean or open burned. All of this littering over the last probably 2 decades was open burned in China, which means that it takes like 13 days for their air to get to us. So we're breathing all of the stuff that we recycled. So we've got to make sure that even though we're recycling, we need to make sure that that recycling is going and being treated properly. The landfills are possibly the better way for them to be, because they are treated properly there rather than going to some other country. So there are a lot of ways that litter is impacting all of us that have nothing to do with environmental issues. And just so we want to make sure that we know that. Another thing that we want to do, the millennial generation is the most environmentally conscious generation until the now Gen Z. All of the others are coming along and they've been environmentally aware, but we're finding that those generations are littering in the same numbers and quantity that previous generations did. They're picturing environmentalism as these huge companies with smokestacks. They're not picturing what they are personally doing as helping with creating damage to our environment. So we talk about all of the environmental, but we also talk about road safety, crime rates, fires, higher taxes impacting our economy, property values, insurance rates, business development. All of these things are impacted because of litter. So the first thing that most communities do when they realize, hey, we've got a problem with litter and we don't want this economic impact, this environmental impact, all of these things happening and we just don't want to live in a trash can. So the first thing they do is they go out and they start scheduling pickups, and they do pickups. And Palmetto Pride volunteers over the last 20 years, we're so proud of all of our volunteers. 73 million pounds of litter have been picked up in South Carolina over the last 20 years. That has been reported to Palmetto Pride. So we shouldn't have a litter problem, right? We've got that much picked up. So the reality is that picking up is only a part of the answer. We also have to do a comprehensive litter abatement program that includes pickup, but it's also awareness and education and enforcement. Some people, until you get them in the pocketbook, they're not going to quit littering. You've got to have the enforcement. So some of the education resources that we have, frankly, if there's an idea that you've got that has something to do with litter that you'd like to try, contact us. And if you can convince us, we might be able to help you out. One thing that we do is an art contest. There are monetary awards for this. I don't know what they're going to be next year, but I think it was $1,000 this year for the student, $500 for the school, and $250 for the teacher. And there is a statewide winner, and then there are also awards for the regional winners. And this art needs to be specifically about South Carolina and specifically about littering. It can have a recycling component, but it needs to be more about litter. We also have a book contest. We saw that there's a lot of environmental books out there, but very few of them are actually about litter, focusing on litter. So we'd like to get a number of books, a library of books that is more about litter, especially litter in South Carolina. So we offer a book contest. It's open to authors of all ages. You don't have to illustrate it. We will work with illustrating it if you need to. But the winner gets their book printed, and it's distributed to every elementary school library in South Carolina. And you can see we've had a couple of young people win. I believe this is Cherish. The picture is Cherish. We also come out to the school and do a presentation, give everybody their books. Think about if you're a young author, how fun that would be to have your own book in your school library. We also have a marionette show put on by the Columbia Marionette Theater. This is a free show. It's 20 minutes long. You do need to contact John Scollin. You can contact our office and we can put you in touch with them to schedule that. It's 20-minute show. They come in and set up usually in a cafeteria or a large space, and they do an awesome show with that's about litter and cool marionettes. We also have the litter-free games. This is a high school program. It's football, but we have also had people do basketball and baseball as well, I believe, softball. So the students, some club in the school works with us. They do get money. I believe it's $200. And we provide them signs, bags, and what they do is they ask the maintenance crew, the staff, to take the night off, and they make sure that there's no litter left behind in the stands. They do announcements during the game. They hand out trash bags throughout the game through the stands, and then they clean up afterwards. We also have litter lessons. These meet the state guidelines. We worked with a teacher to put these together. These are free. It's a free curriculum. And all you need to do is contact our, get on our website. You can find it on our website under the education and the resources tab. And we will send you the code to get into it, the password to get in. So the litter lessons, we have 9 of them, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So these are different grade levels. They each have a different subject matter. So you can see here, this one is for the kindergarten K through 5. It's a very diverse program. It's got vocabulary, it's got an experiment, and they all meet state standards. And if you need, there is a materials list. If you have trouble getting together materials and stuff, you can contact us and we can try to help you with that. Here's another one. I won't go through every single one, but the ideas are each concept is directed towards a specific age group. You can see in this one, we did last year when the schools were closed, we did some Facebook Lives, and we did several of the lessons that you can find on our Facebook page. We also will come out and do in-person or virtual lessons. In this case, Mallory, my coworker, was out. This was a couple of weeks ago, and she did a Who Dirtied the Water lesson. It's a very interesting one. And you can see we actually have the science standard, all of the state standards listed on each of the lessons. So some other things that we have a tree grant that you might be interested in, as long as it's on public accessible land. You can, I believe that opens up in October, I'm not sure, but you can adopt some trees and get them planted. That's a great thing to do with your kids and talk about how trees impact the environment. We also offer free of charge cigarette butt recycling bins. You can actually recycle cigarette butts. A lot of people don't realize that. They can be used to make bricks or a number of different things. We also have a monofilament bin recycling program. We provide all of the parts to make these recycling bins, and your students can adopt them and put them up in near a boat landing or a stream, and collect the monofilament, and those can be recycled as well. We also have any kind of litter pickup needs. It's a great thing to do a litter pickup with your students, especially around Earth Day. But we have a lot of pickup programs, and we provide supplies free of charge. You let us know what you need, and we're there. And we just want to point out, though, 60% reduction in litter when we're doing litter pickups in the same area. We're seeing a 60% reduction in litter since we started. And again, that's 73 million pounds of litter that's been picked up so far by our volunteers. We're very proud of them. Thank you all. And does anyone have any questions?
Esther, we do have a question in the Q&A from Veronica Wright. Can she work with this project with her after school kids?
Oh, yes. Yes. Any kind of group. Anytime you got a group of kids together, it's a great opportunity to reach out to them.
Awesome. And thank you so much, Esther. Y'all over at PalmettoPride, y'all rock. And we just love having y'all as partners. So we thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
What an electrical way to get the session started. Hey, everybody. I'm Margaret Mendenhall, along with Anita. Stacy Washington from the Energy Office will be joining us in just a little bit. And I want you to know that we are amped up and supercharged to get this session started. So the lesson that we're going to be looking at is Get Current on Energy. This is one of 22 of the lessons in Action for a Cleaner Tomorrow. This one, obviously, we're going to be talking about energy. It has some great hands-on activities for you and your students. One of the things about the Action for a Cleaner Tomorrow curriculum is that it is very teacher friendly. So you know when you have that lesson exactly what you're supposed to teach. So underneath the title is the learning objectives, which is going to describe what the students will be learning. Underneath that is background. That's just several paragraphs of background information going into more in-depth information on energy. Also underneath that, you're going to, in the top right corner, you're going to actually see the science standards that were correlated to this lesson. You're going to see the blue E's. These are going to be our e-learning activities. It may be a video, it may be a book. And in this case, you'll see Energy Island. So again, you can see that this curriculum is not just a science curriculum. You'll be able to tie in literacy. Energy Island is a great book. It talks about how a community conserved energy from the wind to make electricity run. So this lesson, as all of the lessons in Action for a Cleaner Tomorrow, will follow the 5E model. And on the last page there, the fourth page, you can see at the end of each lesson, it's going to have those science standards that were correlated to this lesson. And then also on the bottom, you can see the SCPs, the science and engineer practices. One of the activities in Action for a Cleaner Tomorrow, it's going to talk about the 10 energy sources. And this is just one of them. And another thing about this curriculum is that you can use it however you want to do it with your students. So for an example, this is a what am I, who am I game. We're going to try to find out which energy source we're going to be talking about. So as we know, there's 10 of them. 5 of them are renewable, 5 of them are non-renewable. So you can do all 10 of them. You can just have the 5 renewable. You can just do 5 of the non-renewable. Again, how it works best with you. So what you're going to do on the left-hand side, this one you'll see, this one's Energy Fact Card 1. So you will need to make a copy of all 10 of those, place them around the room, and then you're going to give each student an energy icon. So what those students are going to do, they're going to get their icon, they're going to go around the room, read those clues, and find out which icon their clue goes with. So I'm going to actually put Anita to the test right now. So Anita, I'm going to read 2 clues, and I want you to guess which one I'm talking about, okay? All right. So in the United States, I produce 1.3% of energy consumption, and I am not available at all hours of the day. So what energy source do you think that is? Solar. And if y'all guess solar as well, you are correct. Now, I'm going to give you a bonus question. Ooh. All right. Is solar renewable or is it non-renewable? It is renewable. And if y'all said renewable, you are correct as well. So again, you can see this is a great lesson for your students if you're introducing the 10 energy sources, or again, this could be a great activity to review before a test.
All right, to follow up with the 5E model, we're going to take a look at the 4th E, which is elaborate. In this activity, the students will use the My Home Energy Conservation checklist to discover ways they can conserve energy at home. They can use the student activity sheet to take home with any ideas or suggestions for their families. They can also use this form to look for ways to conserve energy at school as well. All right, so I'm sure there are some things here that you're already doing at home, but just take a look at some changes that I made at my home. All right, on the first sheet, you will see the heating and cooling conservation. The first example mentioned is adjusting your thermostat, which is the least costly conservation measure. Okay, when my sons were in high school, we decided to see what we could do to save on our energy bill. when we made the difference to put our thermostat at 68 degrees in the wintertime, in the winter months, and 78 degrees in the summer months, just to see if it did make a difference. When it was cooler, we were able to add a layer of clothing such as a sweatshirt, or if it was warmer, we could dress lighter to keep us from having to move the thermostat up and down. So we did have the whole family involved in this activity, and it did make a difference on the utility bill. Now, on the bottom right of the first sheet is the water heating conservation. Okay, did you know that one of the ways to conserve hot water is to take a warm shower instead of a hot bath? Now, my family typically takes showers, so we use less water than the bath, but by using warm water instead of hot water, you will also see savings on the utility bill. I installed the water-saving shower heads, and these provided plenty of water to get the job done while still conserving water. Now, at the top of the second sheet, it says appliance conservation. Now, before my sons went off to college, I was teaching them to cook, and this is an important lesson for them to know before heading off to college. I emphasized the importance of using the burner the same size as the pot so no heat could escape. Also, just as important not to keep peeking into the oven when they're baking something. We want to keep that heat in. So these are just some small suggestions that I made to make it more efficient. Now, on the right side of the second sheet is lighting conservation. Over time, I've been able to switch out the light bulbs to and the lamps to different energy-saving bulbs. And these last a lot longer, and they use less energy. I've also switched the shades in my home, to lighter colored shades, so that reflects more light. And these are just some of the ideas that I came up with, for my own home. And these are just some ways to save energy. Now, the third sheet, that is my home energy conservation proposal form. Students can use this activity sheet to make suggestions and to create a plan for their family to conserve energy at home. I'd like to also get the teachers involved. I'd like to challenge them to do the same in their own home and then share with their students how they were able to save energy. An extension of this activity would be to explore different ways to conserve energy at school as well. Even simple changes can make a difference.
So also in the lessons, you're going to come across extension activities. I want to point this out. Don't forget to look at those extension activities. There may be a lesson you don't even want to teach that whole lesson, but you want to teach the extension part of that activity. This one is on BTUs, and BTUs stands for British Thermal Unit, and it is a measurement of energy. So on this one, it tells us that a BTU is is the energy of burning one match, okay? So for an example, if it took 40 million BTUs of electricity to heat a house for 1 year, that is equal to burning 40 million matches. Wow. That's something, isn't it, right? So with this extension activity, what you're going to have your students to do, there is a student activity sheet. So they're going to find the it's called insulation percentages. So they're going to do some math problems. So again, tying in math with it, they're going to be doing some math activities, and we're going to find out about the loss of energy due to poor insulation.
Okay, and in this lesson, we looked at materials that make the best conductors and insulators. A conductor are materials that easily carry heat or electric current. Now, if you were with us last year for our webinar, or maybe you've seen the 6th grade presentation, you may recall the video on conductors. In this activity, we looked at types of materials, and of course, in this case with spoons, would make the best conductor. Now, if you haven't seen it, you can always go to the website, takeactionsc.org, go to the teacher resource tab, and then video resources to view the thing on conductors. Now, we're going to look at insulators. An insulator are materials that are poor carriers of heat or electric current. Now, take a look at our video activity on insulators to see which material made the best insulator.
Hello everyone. The lesson we're going to look at is called Get Current on Energy. This lesson discusses the 10 energy sources, ways that you can reduce energy at home and at school, and about insulators and conductors.
The activity we're going to look at is on insulators.
Insulators are any material that resists the flow of energy, whether heat or electrical, to move through an item easily.
So in this activity, we're going to discover which material will perform as a better insulator for an ice cube. The materials that you'll need are the student activity meltdown sheet, some ice, and an option would be to use blue food coloring to color the ice blue, and a timer.
Some items that you may find around your home or classroom to use would be styrofoam, newspaper, aluminum foil, cotton, or cloth.
The materials that we're going to use will be a styrofoam egg carton and a newspaper,
aluminum foil, and a cloth.
Which material do you think is going to be the better insulator? Do you think it's going to be the styrofoam, the newspaper, the aluminum foil, or the cloth?
Let's set the timer for 10 minutes and see. It's been 5 minutes. We only have 5 more minutes to go. Let's see what is happening to our ice. All right, in the styrofoam, looks like very little is melting. Ooh, the newspaper is pretty wet. Oh, lots of water in the, and what about this in the cloth?
It's been 10 minutes. Let's observe. Our styrofoam have a little bit of melting going on here. Our newspaper, wow, a lot of melting going on in the newspaper.
The aluminum foil is very, very wet. As you can see, a lot of melting. And the same thing with the cloth, it's not melted so much. Let's completely insulate the ice by closing each item. We'll allow for 5 more minutes.
It's been 15 minutes. Let's observe our styrofoam container now that it was completely insulated. So you can see our ice cube has melted somewhat. And in the newspaper, oh wow, this newspaper is completely wet.
Let's look at the aluminum foil. There is a lot of melting, mostly melted. And then in the cloth, has it melted too much?
Let's close them back and set the timer for 5 more minutes. So it's been 20 minutes. Let's observe our insulators. So in our styrofoam, you can see that it's somewhat melted. In our newspaper, you can see that it is mostly melted.
Look into the aluminum foil, and it is melted a lot, mostly melted. And the cloth, just slightly melted.
So you can see that the styrofoam made the better insulator for the ice cube.
And the aluminum foil did not make a very good insulator for the ice cube. As you can see, it's mostly melted. To expand on this experiment, try using other materials such as a styrofoam cup, a copper cup, a plastic cup, or a glass to see which one would make the better insulator.
There's more information on insulators and energy in the Action for a Cleaner Tomorrow curriculum and on the website Take Action SC, and visit the Energy Office website at energy.sc.gov.
So the video that you just saw on insulators, you will be able to find that on our takeactionsc.org website under our YouTube videos. So now we are going to test your knowledge on energy.
All right, so the question is, energy savings are an often overlooked environmental benefit of recycling. Using recycled aluminum cans to make more aluminum cans uses what percent less energy than making cans from the raw material bauxite? And we already have lots of answers coming in. So your choices are 50% less, 75% less, or 95% less. So the most commonly answered choice was 75% less. So 95% less is what we were looking for.
Yes.
Anita, you want to tell them a little bit more about that?
Yeah, did you know that recycling aluminum cans such as soda cans uses 95% less energy than making new cans from the actual raw material? And of course, recycling steel cans, such as a bean or corn can, uses 75% less energy than making new cans from raw material. So remember, the next time you recycle, not only are you saving landfill space and natural resources, but you're also saving energy.
That's right. And next we're going to hear from Stacy Washington from the Energy Office, which is a wonderful partner of ours. So Stacy, please take it over.
Great, thank you all. That was great. I love the music. It's electric. Wiggy, wiggy, wiggy. So yes, my name is Stacy Washington. I'm with the South Carolina Energy Office. And I just wanted to give you an overview of us and introduce you to our energy lessons. So the Energy Office is a state entity within the Office of Regulatory Staff. Our mission is to promote energy efficiency, renewable energy, and clean transportation. And that is done through many ways, one of which is education and outreach, and that's why we're here today. So we did in this past year, help create new energy lessons with Greenleaf Education. And we have 10 energy lessons on our website, brand new, that meet the South Carolina science standards. So if you go to energy.sc.gov/energy lesson plans, you'll find those there. Also wanted to mention that after this workshop today, we are partnering with the NEED project to do an energy workshop that will be held this afternoon and tomorrow morning. So if you are free and would like to attend that workshop, I'll put a registration link in the chat, but I would encourage you, if you want to know more about energy and the lessons that are available from the Energy Office and the NEED project, to please come out to that workshop this afternoon and tomorrow morning. Educators that attend will receive a free energy kit. And I saw some people like the energy stick, and that energy stick is in the energy kit if you'd like that, as well as a squishy circuits kit and a kilowatt meter and some other things. So please, if you're interested in that and would like those resources, come on out to the workshop. And like I said, I'll put that in the chat. So today we're gonna go more into our Soak Up the Sun lesson that is part of those 10 lessons that were created this last year. So this is a little sneak peek of the lesson here. And this lesson is for grades 3 to 6. It's called Soak Up the Sun with Solar Energy Fun, and talks about the advantages and disadvantages of solar energy. Today, you'll see a video on the solar bead activity. And then there's also an activity called Solar Collection Investigation that talks about thermal solar energy. And that's also available on our website, a video of that activity as well. And once again, that's energy.sc.gov/energy lesson plans. And part of your kit today will be the solar beads. You get a little pack of solar beads in your kit for the Take Action SC workshop to help you get started on doing that lesson. So now we can get to the video.
My name is Stacy Washington, and I work with the South Carolina Energy Office. Today, I'll be presenting one of our activities from our lesson, Soak Up the Sun. This lesson discusses various ways solar energy can be used and the advantages and disadvantages of solar energy. One of the activities in the lesson uses solar beads to show one of the disadvantages of solar energy. This activity demonstrates how to make the best decision on how to avoid the harmful rays of the sun. Now let's get into the activity. The materials needed are UV beads, 2 plastic bags, one will have sunscreen on top, and of course sunscreen. Let's go outside and see what happens.
Now we're outside with the beads and in the sun. Let's see what happens with the one with the sunscreen and the one without the sunscreen. The one with the sunscreen, it changed a very little bit, not as much as the one without the sunscreen. The color is more vibrant in the one without the sunscreen. Now we're in the shade, and as you can see, the beads that have the sunscreen on the plastic bag still didn't change very much, and the ones without the sunscreen, they changed a little, but the color is not as vibrant. So when you're in the shade, even that can help you reduce your UV exposure. Now I'm going to demonstrate how the same thing with the UV beads can work for solar energy with the solar panel. Just like the UV beads, when the solar panel is in direct sunlight, it generates electricity. This solar panel is generating about 14 watts of electricity. When I cover up even a corner of that, similar to if the shade or a tree was blocking a part of the panel, that will reduce the amount of electricity generated by the solar panel. When I put my hand over it, this battery generation goes down to almost zero. If you enjoyed this lesson, go to our website for more energy lessons at energy.sc.gov/energy lesson plans.
Thank you. And as I mentioned earlier, yes, we're having our need workshop this afternoon and tomorrow morning. So I put a link in the chat. So please, that's the actual registration link to the actual registration. And the link here is to the calendar event on the Energy Office website. So please click the link and register if you are interested.
Thank you so much, Stacy. We're already seeing a lot of requests in the chat for more information. So you should see some more registrations coming in soon.
And then also, Stacy, I know everybody is going to be super excited to get those solar beads in the mail and getting outside playing with their solar beads, watching them change colors. All right, so now we're going to hear from Amanda Lay with Champions of the Environment.
My name is Amanda Lay, and I'm the Champions of the Environment Program Coordinator at DHEC. This program awards grants to kindergarten through 12th grade environmental education projects that improve and protect our water, land, and air. I'm going to share some examples of the diverse projects we funded and then tell you how you can apply for a grant. So here are those examples of past projects. Habitat restoration projects are popular. This is a wood duck habitat that they restored. And here's an example of an oyster reef and Spartina restoration project. We fund citizen science projects like this one that focused on water quality monitoring. The school used Champions funding to purchase a monitoring kit from AdoptAstream. We funded innovative projects that focused on alternate energy like this solar-powered greenhouse. And finally, pollinator conservation projects are trending, like this beekeeping project and the creation of pollinator gardens. Speaking of pollinators, visit the new Pollinator Conservation webpage on the Champions website for project ideas and resources for creating or maintaining your own pollinator garden. This year, we'll award up to 10 grants at $2,500 each, as well as some smaller merit awards. The grant application period opens August 1st and closes October 15th. Visit the Champions website to see examples of past winning projects like I just showed you, learn how winners are selected and the criteria that are used, and submit your online application. Feel free to contact me to discuss your project or learn more about the program. I look forward to reading your applications and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amanda Lay. I know you're on and always a great partner for us as well. So we appreciate you.
And finally, we are closing in on the end of our program. And obviously, that statement, last but not least, goes to South Carolina Green Step Awards Program. And Jane Hiller, who plays such a huge part in that, is going to present those awards.
Hello. My name is Jane Hiller, and I'm here to honor all the educators who took part in the South Carolina Green Step Schools Initiative this past year. Green Steps help schools establish and sustain projects that conserve, protect, and restore the environment. We are sponsored by the Environmental Education Association of South Carolina, South Carolina DHEC, and Sunoco Recycling. To earn awards, schools must document approved projects with pictures and captions or videos showing students learning, doing, and teaching others about their projects. Schools must work with qualified mentors to plan, establish, sustain, and evaluate those projects. In 2021, 19 schools in 7 counties worked with 21 mentors on 115 projects. Given COVID, that was pretty impressive. This year, 15 local mentors worked with schools. Those mentors included Sonia Terry, Kendra Hooks, Mike Walker, Michelle Bailey, Laura Blake Orr, Rashinda Batson, John Oxner, Linda Byers, Kelly Meeker, Rosemary Martin Jones, Chanda Cooper, Beth Eberhart, Kelly Stackis, Catherine Madden Mills, and Ahmed Baker. In addition, 6 statewide mentors also helped. Amy Curran, Stacy Washington, Matt Schnabel, Beth Foley, Jay Keck, and myself. This program wouldn't exist without the help of these wonderful mentors. This year's Green Step Mentor of the Year goes to Laura Blake Orr of Keep the Midlands Beautiful, who lovingly mentored 6 schools in 2 counties with both recycling and litter prevention projects. We were excited to add 3 new schools to the Green Steps family this year, including East Point Academy, Hero Homeschool, and Lexington Middle School. 6 schools continued to work towards certification, which means 2 model quality projects in each of our 3 categories. They include Cola City Homeschool, Dent Middle School, Leapart Elementary, Olanta Elementary, River Ridge Academy, and Windsor Elementary. 7 schools were able to sustain their certification, including Aiken Elementary, Condor Elementary, Dutch Fork Elementary, Harmony Elementary, Ocean Bay Middle School, Taylor's Elementary, and White Knoll High School. Three certified schools almost met recertification standards despite COVID challenges. They include Irmo Middle School, Irmo High School, and Pleasant Hill Elementary. Did your school also have pandemic challenges? Who didn't, right? Don't worry, you can pick up right where you left off this fall. Each year, we select the best of the best in each of our categories. This year, Taylor's Elementary was named the 2021 Conserve School of the Year. Dutch Fork Elementary Academy of Environmental Sciences was named the 2021 Project Protect School of the Year. And Ocean Bay Middle School was named the 2021 South Carolina Restore School of the Year. These 3 schools actually made history this year. They each earned their fourth superlative award. Over many years, these schools have earned recognition as the Conserve, Protect, Restore, and Overall School of the Year. What do these schools have in common? They each have a champion teacher leading the effort. Nelda Kay at Taylor's Elementary, Amy Umberger at Dutch Fork Elementary, and Cindy Lilly at Ocean Bay Middle School have wowed us with their dedication and leadership. This year's overall Green Step School of the Year goes to White Knoll High School under the impressive leadership of David Can. Every one of White Knoll's mentors recommended this school for this award. We are so grateful for all of our Green Steps educators, mentors, and sponsors. If you want to continue, start, or restart Green Steps projects at your school, or if you would like to be a Green Steps mentor, just email me. Starting August 1st, I will be retired from Sunoco Recycling and have a new email address, janehiller@gmail.com, but I will be as happy as ever to hear from you. Thank you to all of you. We are so impressed with all of the work that you do.
Thank you, Jane, and a special congrats to Jane, who is retiring this year. And we got to present Jane with an award that we feel is pretty special earlier last week with every once in a while here at DHEC, we get to give an honorary Recycle Guy award. And so Jane was named our newest honorary Recycle Guy. And we sincerely appreciate your partnership and look forward to continuing that, Jane.
So let's talk about what's coming up for 2021. I know you've all been wanting to hear about the grants and how that's going to work. So tell us about that, Amanda.
Yeah, let's get to that. Maybe. I never know how we're going to top the next year after the last year, but I feel like we say that every year.
Yes.
So we're gonna set that goal. But grants are going to be opened up in mid-August, and Stephanie Vandiver could not be with us today, but she is your K-12 grants person, and she is so excited to talk to you and give your school some money. So just like last year, the grants typically open mid-August. For last year's grants, they were about, I think they were $1,500 per school, but your district can apply as a whole district and get each school in the district that $1,500. So that's something to keep in mind if you're looking to start a district-wide project. Or if you're just starting something at your school and it doesn't need to be a district, you can apply as an individual school as well. Just remember, it does need to be a school representative applying for the grants. We love volunteers and we love parents, but we need a school person to send that money to. And that is to K-12 public or private schools. So reach out to Stephanie if you're interested in a grant. I promise to give you a few details about some of the projects that we've talked about. So like for food waste reduction, if you're looking to compost or start a share table and you need equipment, those are things that you can apply for in your grant. If you're not 100% sure if what you're thinking you want to apply for is allowable, I highly encourage you to just shoot Stephanie an email and talk to her. I know that she has helped a lot of schools and talked them through the grant process, and she's been doing this a while. So,
and when we were doing the student ambassadors for sustainability, she actually helped several of them talk through their project and apply for that grant. So
right, and just as you know, to show you on the screen, you can see the plastic bottles saved. So this was a school, the district from Oconee County applied last year, and on the first day that they got their refilling stations, at one station they saved 136 plastic bottles. So shout out to Oconee County, and we know that their recycling team and solid waste group is also involved in the schools, and we appreciate you as well.
So let's talk about classroom presentations. This year, of course, we did mostly virtual, K through 12. We are going to continue to offer that to all K through 12 classrooms. promising to keep those classroom presentations grade correlated to your grade standards, and that they'll all be different presentations. We are also new, yay, we're excited to say this. We're going to be doing obviously in person back with our 5th and 7th grade, but we're adding the 3rd grade this year. And of course, keeping the environmental science classes as well. So very excited to add the 3rd grade. Of course, our hopes would be when we come to a school that we can do 5th grade and 3rd grade on the same day. So keep that in mind. We've always had lots of 3rd grade teachers ask us, can you make a presentation for our classroom? But our budget just didn't allow for that for different reasons. So we're trying to put that into place now. And so definitely email or call us to schedule a classroom presentation.
And if you're not sure who to email or call, go to takeactionsc.org, and all of our presenters are listed there by the counties that they cover, so you can figure out who your educator is. And if you're still not sure, just reach out to me or Angie and we'll get you in touch with the right person.
And you know, so one more thing I want to make a comment about this is that if you want to change an entire thing at your school culture-wise, you're trying to teach all your K through 5th grade or 6th through 8th grade about something, recycling or composting, what better way to kick that off than to have our educators come to your school, because they could do 3rd and 5th grade live, and then you could follow up and have them do a classroom presentation for all the other grades virtually. And then you have everybody on board trying to really make a difference in how to change the way they're thinking.
That's a great point, Angie. And another great way to get involved is to have a teacher workshop. So just like you're attending this teacher workshop virtually, we have teacher workshops with Mary Margaret Mendenhall all throughout the year. So if you have 15 or more in your group, and that group can mean you're at your school or maybe surrounding schools, it doesn't all have to be the same school, but 15 or more, and she can do virtual or in-person trainings on the curriculum. You'll get a copy of the curriculum, and usually she has some cool sources along the way to give out. But this is also open to colleges who have student teachers that are looking to really dive into this curriculum as well. So we look forward to having Mary Margaret get set up with your groups as well. This is it. This is the end, but we hope it's really just we're going to see you later in the year. We appreciate each and every one of you. And I know that Angie and I have both said that multiple times, but we truly, truly mean it. This program, between our partners, our educators, and of course you, our environmental educators and teachers, just thanks. Thanks for all that you're doing. And like Angie said, thanks for having us in your classroom and in your programs. And we look forward to continuing that relationship.
Have a great rest of the summer.
Yep, and we'll see y'all later.
Bye.